Blood is all over the place, white bones are all over the place. This scene is so sad that it's not like being in the world, but like being in Shura purgatory. Whether it's the fat Taoist or the Jade Emperor, they are all dizzy and nauseous at this moment. They just hate that they have no chance to listen to Yi Tian's advice and close their eyes like Ning Shui. In this way, they can't see the tragedy in the world. Even if you are like this, dare you say that you want to get rid of the demons and guard the way and eliminate the visions in the mind? Yi Tian picked a pick eyebrow, looking at fat Taoist priest, light way. Daoi, I.O. Hearing this, the fat Taoist immediately raised his head. Just as he wanted to say a few words, he could see the bloody scenes, but he could not restrain the fear and horror in his heart. He could not help leaning forward again and retching. You'd better stay at home in the future, and don't come out to take this kind of work. Yi Tian looks at the fat Taoist priest and shakes his head. Immediately, he steps forward and comes to the bones. His eyes fall down and he scans the bones. He wants to judge the strength and appearance of the other party by the appearance of the bones. As far as he could see, Yi Tian immediately saw that the bones on the ground, at this moment, could not see what they had looked like before, and they were all broken into pieces. Not only that, the fragments looked like an understatement, tearing these living people into pieces. What a powerful physical strength! Yi Tian looks at the scene in front of him. His eyes are slightly bright and cold. As far as he felt, the strength of the monster in the Devil Jade was at least equal to the 6th floor of the cave. If he didn't come here, even if the fat Taoist held a 1,000-year-old Leiwood sword in his hand, I'm afraid that the lives of these people would be lost here, and their bodies would become these small pieces on the ground. Who? Almost at the same time, along the deep mine, suddenly there was a cold wind whistling and blowing on the body, which immediately made people feel that there was a terrible feeling that bone marrow and flesh seemed to be frozen and turned into ice. Bang bang bang. Then, the flashlights in their hands suddenly seemed to be swept by terrorist forces. Along the position of the lamp cap, they all burst apart. Countless pieces of glass, like raindrops, spread in all directions, fell on the wall and crackled. In a flash, the whole mine turned into a rich and incomparable black. I couldn't see my fingers. In addition to the darkness, it was still a rich dark. The cold wind whistling, in front of the dark, that kind of terror, let people feel, as if in this moment, came to the eternal night, deep and deep, let people's heart in an instant, such as into the extreme abyss, in an instant, they are all occupied by fear and horror. That kind of feeling, let everyone feel, just like a flash, into the horror film, but also the kind of all the protagonists, finally no life, all the souls, the end-of-life horror film. No! Almost at the moment when the flashlight burst, Yi Tian's hand jerked to Ning Shui's position and pulled him in his arms. Immediately after that, his mind dispersed. Suddenly, he felt that along the front of the sky, a monster was spreading its wings and flying from the dark shadow. The speed of the monster was so fast that it was in front of them in the blink of an eye. Then it locked the position of the fat Taoist. In a moment, a hand came out from under his wing, squeezed the fat Taoist in the palm of his hand, and turned back to the depth of the mine. Ah, help, help! In a flash, the shrill and pitiful howl of the fat Taoist suddenly rang through the hall, which made people have an indescribable sense of panic. Stay! When Yi Tian heard this, he put his hand to the ground and took a stone in his hand. Then he poured his magic power on the stone. With a slight shake of his hand, a fierce wind burst out along the stone, whistling and flying towards the position of the monster. Bang! In a flash, along the location of the monster, there was a terrible loud noise, followed by an angry roar, a heavy object falling to the ground, and a shrill howl. Help me, help me, help me! Fat Taoist heard, even cry with call, hands on the ground, ran toward Yi Tian in a hurry. However, the place he passed was covered with wet marks on the ground. It was obvious that he was scared to pee his pants by the monster. Fire at the same time, Yi Tian's hand swung gently. In a flash, along the ground, flames rose and swayed suddenly. The wisps of fire and fog interweaved with each other, emitting dazzling light and endless life. All the mines were illuminated as if it were day. What's the secret? Jade Emperor creepy, incredible looking at Yi Tian, can't understand, how, the mine suddenly more than a fire. Taoist secret art, Southern Tianyan. Yi Tianping Jing responded and said something nonsense. Then he went to the fat Taoist priest, who was crawling towards the fire and was covered with urine, and said with a smile, "Fat ox nose, how about it? Is it time to admit defeat? Please, help me, as long as you are willing to help me out, this sword is yours." Fat Taoist ran to Yi Tian's side, pleading and howling. At this moment, he completely understood why the Jade Emperor trusted Yi Tian, because compared with Yi Tian, he was really nothing. When he faced this kind of fierce and stubborn thing, he could not even resist. He was scared to pee his pants. Even if it was not for the stones thrown by Yi Tian, he would have lost his life now. What's more, the intimate contact with the monster just now made him realize clearly that at this moment, if you don't rely on Yi Tian, who can produce such a large group of flames out of thin air, one of them is one, I'm afraid you don't want to leave the mine. Here comes the monster. And at this time, the Jade Emperor pointed to the location of the monster, word by word, angry. The fire was blazing, and the people immediately looked forward. As soon as they could see, on the ground in front of them, there stood a monster in human shape. It looked like a normal person, with head and limbs. But behind it, there was a layer of bat-like meat wings, and there was no hair on the meat wings. Moreover, along his body, there was a strong and incomparable blood gas. Although it was not close to him, it made people feel like a heavy stone was pressing on their chest, so heavy that they could hardly breathe. The 7th floor of the cave. Not only that, but Yi Tian is sure that the qi emanating from this monster is comparable to the 7th floor of the cave, and is the peak. Roar! Just as people looked at the monster, it was like a wild animal, its head suddenly protruded forward, and behind it a pair of meat wings raised high and roared. Closely following, its feet toward the ground forced a pedal, body ejection, toward Yi Tian, swept. Obviously, after what happened just now, as far as he is concerned, his interest in Yi Tian is far more than that of the fat Taoist. To me? Just now, I'd like to meet you to see what's so powerful about you. Yi Tian suddenly smiles on his face and strides forward. With the operation of mana, a strong and incomparable breath comes out along the human body. The more he walks, the more powerful it is. It makes people feel like a dragon, spreading its powerful power towards the world. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the monster has approached Yi Tian's body, and its claws come out. Along the fingertips, sharp spines come out. He grabs Yi Tian's head and wants to crush it into blood mist. Emperor boxing. Yi Tianling hummed. His 5 fingers suddenly clenched tightly. A mysterious qi, interwoven with his arms, suddenly flew to meet the monster's claws. Bang! In a flash, a terrible explosion of gas immediately spread to the surrounding along the location of the two. The sound of terror even made the whole mine, at this moment, have countless dust, falling down. What kind of monster is this? What kind of monster is he? Fat Taoist scared looked at the monster in the devil jade, then looked at Yi Tian, trembling and murmuring. This kind of momentum has gone beyond the scope of human beings, and even beyond his cognition. It makes him feel that Yi Tian, like the monsters in the devil jade, is a powerful existence that should not appear in this world. But now, they are just like this in front of him. But there is no doubt that he knows that this time, if Yi Tian had not followed him to the mine, and he was the only one, then, at this moment, I'm afraid he would have become the belly meal of the ferocious monster without any suspense, which is no different from the bloodstains he saw on the ground before. So strong. And at this time, after this terrible collision, Yi Tian's body can't help but back a few steps, looking at the same backward flying monster, slightly took a breath. This monster's physical strength is beyond his expectation. It is comparable to the strength of the 7th floor of the cave. It can be seen that there must be some secret hidden in the other person's body. Otherwise, it will not be so powerful. Roar! At this moment, the monster roared, followed closely, behind the wings flapping, moving forward again, near Yi Tian moment, behind the wings suddenly hold tightly, followed, very quickly open, with a strong wind, swept to Yi Tian. Gusts of wind, a wisp, are like a sharp steel knife. It seems that as long as the contamination to a fraction, the body will be cut into debris. You can even use the 5 elements. His body remains the ability to connect heaven and earth. However, how can this secret method be so similar to the idea of Sua Wangguan? When Yi Tian saw the wind whirling suddenly, his eyes were slightly awe-inspiring, his hands were raised, and the wind blades were flying out. At the same time, he was even more surprised to find that the secret method of the monster in the Devil Jade was extremely similar to his idea of Sui Wong Temple. All this made him suddenly wonder whether these monsters would be Kunlun friars. However, Kunlun was robbed and died. Why did these monks become what they are now? All this is really puzzling. Boom! 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 At this time, Yi Tian's wind blade and the wind whirl of the monster's meat wings collided with each other. The two collided. The terrible sound of airflow, the noise and vibration reverberated in the huge mine, making everyone feel that the eardrum is about to crack. They were so depressed that they wanted to vomit blood. It seems that we can only use the sword. Yi Tian's eyes scan. When he sees that the wind blade has not caused any damage to the monster, his mind moves, and the fierce sword suddenly appears in his palm. He moves with his sword to attack the monster. One sword after another, he cuts it out. Roar! When the fierce sword is near, the monster is not afraid. Instead, it raises its claws to resist. What's more incredible is that the fierce sword is so sharp that when it hits the monster's hands, it can't cut into the enemy's hands. On the contrary, there are countless sparks. That feeling, as if the skin of these monsters is made of some kind of god gold, indestructible. Although they are the 7th floor of the cave, they actually have the powerful power to compete with the 8th floor of the cave. Yi Tian is very glad that he has broken through the 8th floor of the cave. Otherwise, it is really unknown who will win this time. Lay me. The fierce soldier's flying sword doesn't work. Yi Tian's eyes change a little immediately. Without thinking, he uses Lei Shu's secret skill to kill this ferocious monster with the help of Thunder's powerful destruction ability. Boom! All of a sudden, in the pit, the light was shining, thunder, intertwined and circling. Finally, it merged into a force, threatened with irrefutable power, and fell on the monster. The terrible thunder was almost as thick as a bowl, shining like lightning, which made the dark pit shine like day. Is he a fairy? Is this the immortal method? This scene makes the fat Taoist feel that his eyes are not enough at this moment. Whether it's sword cutting, wind blade sweeping, or thunder dancing, it's all beyond my understanding. In particular, the scene of Yi Tian leading the thunder, falling from the sky and bombarding the monster is more similar to the legendary Immortals. All this made him think that he thought he was a living immortal before, but now it seems that he is a Mao immortal, and Genius Yi is a real immortal. Mr. Yi, it's too strong. He was not only a fat Taoist, but also the Jade Emperor. Even at this moment, he was about to regret. If he had known that Yi Tian was so powerful, he should have listened to Lu Yanzhao's advice and contacted Yi Tian early. In that case, how could he have dragged the trouble to the present? Click! Boom! The thunder suddenly fell, and suddenly hit the monster's body. In the fierce roar, everyone immediately saw that along the monster's body, suddenly, there were large areas of thunder shining and dancing. Not only that, there were some places in its body, such as the red color after burning with charcoal. That kind of feeling, let a person feel, its body skeleton, as if it were made of metal, or carbon block. Is it over? This crazy and incomparable blow fell, so that everyone around the eyes, do all show the color of expectation. Such a fierce attack, they feel that even if it is really a metal monster, at this moment, I'm afraid it's difficult to escape. Although this monster is powerful, how can it resist the terrible power of thunder? Ha! More than these people, Yi Tian's heart, also have similar ideas, but when his mind dispersed, covering the monster body skeleton moment, his face is suddenly changed. He felt that the powerful blood gas emitted from the monster's body did not decrease, but became more and more powerful. It was as if his sharp Lei Shu had just fallen into a pot of boiling grease and ignited it. His power was more powerful than before. Roar! Almost at the same time, the monster suddenly put his head forward and roared violently at Yi Tian. Even, along his mouth, there was a terrible flame spewing out. That kind of picture was absolutely terrible. The devil, it's the real devil. The fat Taoist murmured, his body was like a gust of wind, and his heart felt a kind of extreme terror. It's not the devil. What is it? Moreover, this can be said to be the devil king of the devil. Damn it, this thing is really troublesome. What is its origin and why is it so difficult to deal with? Tian looked at this scene, frowned, and at the same time, he was perplexed. The difficulty of the monster in the Devil Jade was beyond his expectation, and his fierce power was beyond imagination. The flying sword can't penetrate, and Lei Shu can't work. He can hardly think of any way to annihilate the monster. Shwa! Almost when he thought about it, the monster came again and attacked him with a sharp voice. Moreover, his scarlet eyes were full of longing. It was obvious that his interest in Friar's flesh was far more than that of ordinary people. To seek death, do you really think I have nothing to do with you? Tian drinks coldly and uses the evasion method. His body disappears suddenly. After the monster appears, he cuts the sword horizontally and takes it straight to the neck. At the same time, the Emperor's fist runs and smashes it on the back. We should try to suppress it by both ways. Bang! But almost at the same time, the monster turned in mid-air, waving a pair of meat wings. In the sound of golden iron, he swung away the fierce sword and Emperor's fist in Tian's hand, and then raised one of his feet and stabbed Tian's chest like a dagger to make a transparent hole in his chest. No! Tian sees this, the secret way in his heart is not good. With the strength of anti-shock, he quickly retreats. But even so, his chest clothes are still scratched by the bone spur of the monster's foot. At the moment of touching, he cuts a long hole, and even the skin of his chest appears a red bloodstain. This scene can be called soul-stirring, to the extreme, let Tian's back, all out of a layer of white sweat. It seems that you want me to use my utmost strength. In the same way, this terrible blow also made Tian fully realize that the leisurely method did not clean up the monster at all. His eyes changed, and the original spirit fire in the elixir field suddenly flew out. In an instant, a ray of brilliant gold and rich black flame suddenly appeared in the void. This flame, mysterious, although only a small wisp, can give people the feeling, but it is like a sea of fire. The moment it appears, it makes people feel that the void seems to be burning down. Not only that, along the fire, there is a kind of terrible pressure spread in all directions, heavy, almost breathless. What fire is this? Why is it so powerful? All the people are dull and confused looking at the wisp of flame, and their hearts are full of confusion and tremor. Burn you! At the same time, Tian's hand raised, and the original spirit fire flew to the monster to burn it into powder. Perhaps, this monster is not afraid of thunder, and the flying sword can't damage it at all, but Tian believes that with his original power of spiritual fire, he can surely burn it out and turn it into powder. Kunlun! But almost at the same moment, the terrifying monster suddenly stopped his resistance. His blood-red eyes were staring at the original spirit fire floating in the air. No matter the meat wings, or the hands and feet, or even every part of his body, at this moment, they were trembling and trembling. Not only that, but also along his mouth, there were two sounds. It's an indistinct voice, which is as hoarse as sand friction, but it's very clear. It also has the intelligence existence, recognized my origin spirit fire. When Tian hears the sound, he looks sharp. Originally, he wanted to burn the monster's heart with the original spirit fire, but he didn't attack again. Instead, he suspended the original spirit fire in front of the monster and gently swayed it to see if it could restore more clarity. Is another world coming? Kunlun, is it still there? No, we failed. The original spirit fire flickered, and the blood color in the monster's eyes gradually faded away. He gazed at Tian and immediately raised his hands and looked over his palm. After a bitter sound, he murmured to himself, "Who am I?" "I am Kunlun Shou Wang Duo." When Tian heard these words, his heart suddenly trembled. Although he had a guess in his heart from the beginning of the fierce battle, he could not help sighing when he heard the answer. The man he was fighting for was indeed a monk in Kunlun. According to his estimation, this Kunlun Shou named Wang Duo is supposed to be the seeds left behind by some secret method when Kunlun was destroyed, in order to let them come out when the next world appeared, to reproduce the glory of Kunlun in the past, and to bring new life to the ruined place. But unfortunately, I don't know where there is a problem. There has been an accident in their band. Although they have survived for a long time, they have become a monster instead of Kunlun Shou. He's not a monster? He can talk, too? Is he human? What's the matter? It's incredible that such a ferocious-looking monster can speak. Is he human? But how can people be like this? The fat Taoist priest and the Jade Emperor were also shaken by this scene. Their eyes were dull and trembling. They whispered and were perplexed. Master. Hearing these words, Tian stops the attack completely, looks at Wang Duo and sighs softly. Sorry. Hearing the sound, Wang Duo looked at Tian, faded his blood red and became clear. His eyes were full of guilt. He apologized to Tian. Immediately, he nodded his head slightly, showing a happy look. He said, Kunlun has not been broken, there is still something left. I'm Kunlun at the end of the day, Master. What happened in Kunlun? Why did you become like this? Tian asks Wang Duo to know the truth. Darkness is coming, and all disasters are caused by longevity and immortality. We create immortality, but when the darkness comes, we can only resist. Unfortunately, some people dump the looted embers in Kunlun. We are all infected by the poison of the looted embers, and we have the power of looting. In order to preserve some seeds, Kunlun has sealed us up in the natural spirit jade and sealed it underground, in order to make Kunlun reappear in the future when the great world is opened again. Unfortunately, we are entrusted with the responsibility and have been harassed by the plundering force. Murmured Wang Duo. Nature Lingyu. Hearing this, Tian can't help taking a breath of air. He is not unfamiliar with the 4 characters of Nature Spirit Jade. According to legend, this is the closest to the existence of immortal things, but the number of existing things is extremely rare. Even if we search the square-inch spirit realm, I'm afraid we can only get 3 or 2 pieces occasionally, and the number is extremely rare. It's said that the absorption of Nature Spirit Jade can make people transform a body of mana into immortal power. Even this jade involves the secret of becoming immortal. Every time Lingyu was born, it would cause fierce competition. Even the great friars in Yupu could not protect themselves. But in the past, Kunlun Xiu was able to find such a huge number of natural spirit jade, even so huge that it could seal up the human body. It's a pity that after such a long time, the spirit of the natural spirit jade dissipated and turned into leisure jade. Moreover, even the natural spirit jade could not dissolve the plundering power in their bodies. In the long time, the natural spirit jade and the plundering power mingled and changed them into what they are today. What makes Tian even more terrifying is that from Wang Duo's words, he finds that Kunlun has become a place of destruction, not a natural place, but a man-made place. It is someone who has poured a large amount of looting ashes into Kunlun, turning that holy land into a place of destruction, which is now covered by the power of destruction. However, Jijin is treacherous and sinister, and its inherent power is terrible. As long as it is contaminated, it will lead to its own disaster, causing the body to become empty and the vitality to be cut off. Even if Tian's most powerful cultivation of Yupu realm can't be touched lightly, even if he tries his best, he can only absorb a little. But how did the friars who destroyed Kunlun at the beginning manage to pour the vast amount of looting ashes into Kunlun? Not only that, now, he finally understood that when he was in Fengsu and Lingyu, he only guessed, but did not get a completely confirmed answer. The reason for the emergence of the Dark Age, as expected, is that things are related to the secret of immortality. Things are related to the secret of immortality. The people who set off all this just want to get immortality. Watch out for Kunlun repair. At this time, Wang Duo suddenly thought of something. He raised his hand and wanted to grab Tian's arm. He could see his claw and finally fell down. He said slowly, when we were banned, the elder who sent us into Nature Lingyu once said that Kunlun Xiu was the master of darkness. Among the masters of the Dark Age, Kunlun Xiu? When Tian heard the words, he suddenly showed his awe-inspiring color in his eyes, secretly alerting himself. Wang Duo's warning was timely. Otherwise, if he met Kunlun Xiu later, he would be kind and ignore this possibility. In that case, waiting for him at that time, I'm afraid I don't even know how to die. Well, I'll be careful. Tian nodded cautiously, saying that he would keep Wang Duo's words in mind. Kunlun is still there. I'm at ease. Wang Duo looks at Tian. His eyes are full of sighs and sighs. After several sighs, he forced out a smiling face and surrounded him in all directions. When he saw the bloodstain caused by himself, his eyes droop and his face is sad and helpless. After a long time, he looks at Yi Tian and says with a low sigh, "Send me on the road, I should have dissipated in this world, let me go to see them who have been so long gone." "Master, is there no other possibility?" Yi Tian is silent. After pondering a little, he looks at Wang Duo and asks in a deep voice, "If you don't wake up, maybe there's a chance to survive in the natural spirit jade. With the only remaining spirit, you can suppress the internal force and wait for those who are against heaven to help us break up the internal force and restore the former physical body." But now, there's no chance. Wang Duo shook his head and sighed bitterly. Yi Tian is silent. He knows that what Wang Duo said is the truth. He can feel that the power of Wang Duo's body has become stronger than ever, just like an active volcano blocked by people when it is about to erupt. The present peace is the ultimate terror that will erupt when the future power spreads. All this makes people sigh, but also makes people feel disappointed. Even if Kunlun is as strong as it used to be, it will be overturned, leading to irreparable. Live a good life, pursue the road of Kunlun in the past, and fulfill our wishes. If there is a chance, resurrect the rest. Wang Duo saw Yi Tian's expression, his face showed a ferocious, but moving smile, a warm voice, immediately, again, "Send me on the road." Now his state is no different from that of death, and even more painful than that of death. It is the greatest relief for him to be able to start when he is awake. Yi Tian hesitates. At this moment, Wang Duo, no matter what, is a Kunlun monk with a clear mind. Now he has the brand of Kunlun. He can be regarded as a classmate of Kunlun, but he still can't bear to start. But the next moment, his mana is working, and the original spirit fire suddenly twinkles. He knows that if he changes himself into Wang Duo, he will be happy. "I hope I can die when I am sober, rather than live like a devil." Roar! Almost at the same time, Wang Duo suddenly growled, his eyes suddenly red as blood, and became ferocious and terrifying. His flesh wings flapped and sent out a kind of ferocity, but his body was shaking. It was obvious that Wang Duo's residual consciousness was suppressing these negative emotions, but it was on the verge of collapse. If Wang Duo is an active volcano now, he is about to reach the edge of eruption. Next time, he will be occupied by the marauding demons. "Do it, kill me, send me on the road." Wang Duo's body trembles and sends out his last request to Yi Tian. "Master, I'll take you on the road." Yi Tianmeng clenched his teeth, and immediately made a decisive move. The original spirit fire was shining, and the fire was surging. It was like a rosefinch appearing in the world, flying to Wang Duo, to engulf him and burn him to ashes. Not only that, but also at this moment, he turned his mana to the peak, exuding the power of terror. He knew that the more powerful he was, the more gratified Wang Duo, who was also a Kunlun monk, would be when he left the world, because he knew that Kunlun had successors. Boom! The original spirit fire was extremely powerful. When it came to Wang Duo's body, it enveloped his body in the terrible fire. Roar! Wang Duo's eyes were red with blood and roared with the terrible pain brought by the burning fire all over his body. He immediately approached Yi Tian. The evil nature of robbing and destroying had completely occupied his body and wanted to burn with Yi Tian's jade and stone. Not only that, along his body, there are more bone spines sticking out like swords to pierce Yi Tian, so as to make him become nothing. Yi Tian's secret way is not good. He doesn't have any hesitation. With one hand, he uses Emperor's Fist to fight against Wang Duo. With the other hand, he holds the fierce flying sword tightly. One sword is as fast as a sword. He blocks Wang Duo's bone spurs to avoid being hurt by him. I don't know how long it has passed, the flame around Wang Duo suddenly disappeared. Not only that, his strange appearance, at this moment, is also in a crazy twist and change, as if he is carrying out some kind of reorganization. Finally, those originally ferocious and terrifying looks like demons, like ice and snow, melt away, and restore the original appearance. However, although Wang Duo has recovered his original appearance, Yi Tian can feel that the breath of vitality emanating from his body is disappearing like flowing water at this moment. It's just that after a few breaths, it's going to disappear. Master! Yi Tian sighs, want to stop, but there is no way to change the situation at this moment. He knew that Wang Duo's body had been completely destroyed by the power of destruction. All the life in Wang Duo's body had been extinguished. What he looked like at this moment was just a reflection when his life came to the end. This situation, not to mention that he is now only 8 levels in the cave, even if he used to have the fighting power of the great friars in Yupu, there is no way to reverse it. All this made Tian feel sad. Every Kunlun monk he met came to an extremely miserable end and could not get a good death. Is this the fate that all Kunlun monks must face? This is my best destination, the best ending, younger martial brother. Thank you. For us, live well, and if possible, revive the others. From the newly recovered body, the blood color in Wang Duo's eyes faded. Although it was dark, he murmured to Tian with a relaxed smile. Don't worry, elder martial brother. I will do my best. Tian nodded hard and gave a positive answer. It's a long time to wait for this day. Take me out and have a look at today's world. Take another look, Kunlun Wang Duo murmured inside, immediately, looking at Tian, word by word, eyes with hope, slowly. At this moment, he is full of vitality and can't move anymore. But he hopes to see the long-lost sky in Kunlun which is haunted but never seen from now on. I'll take you out. Tian nodded, followed, hand suddenly fell on Wang Duo's arm, will he carry on the back, followed closely, fierce sword operation, with 2 people, toward the dark pit, quickly swept away. Master, master. Fat Taoist sees Tian leave, and his courage is about to break. He wants to chase after Tian. He is afraid that there are monsters like Wang Duo in the mine. He takes advantage of Tian's chance to take Wang Duo away and takes away his life. Just, his speed, where can compare with the speed of fierce soldiers flying sword, can only watch helplessly, Tian like streamer, disappeared in the mine. It's over, it's over. The fat Taoist priest sat down on the ground and howled bitterly. Especially when he looked at the dark mine ahead, his voice was full of crying. What are you crying for? I don't see. Is Miss Ning still here? Even if I abandon you and me, will you leave Miss Ning alone? Fool! The Jade Emperor heard the wailing voice of the fat Taoist priest. He couldn't help but show his speechless color. After a glance at him, he despised him. Great, great, aunt, you must not fly away. Fat Taoist hears the sound, immediately tears into a smile, and then ran to Ning Shui's side, looking at him with a flattering face, the way. The Jade Emperor listened to this sentence and shook his head speechless. The performance of the fat Taoist made him disappointed to the extreme. He even wondered how he had been fooled by such a liar before. He was really stupid to think that this fool could help himself solve these problems. This is the world today that's Kunlun in the past. Kunlun had such a snowstorm. At the same time, Tian and Wang Duo appear in the sky outside the mine. They are bathed in the wind and snow. Wang Duo turns his head and looks at the shadowy Kunlun mountains in the wind and snow, murmuring. What's more, at this moment, he has a bright smile on his face. Although he has gone through endless years, at this moment, he seems to have become the young man before he stepped into nature Lingyu again. He is simple and clean, and has unlimited vision for the future in his heart. Younger martial brother, thank you for letting me see this world in Kunlun again at the last moment of my life. This is my best home. Wang Duo turns his head and looks at Tian. After a murmur, he immediately raises his hand slowly to touch the snow. Snowflakes falling, suddenly, there is a piece of snow, touched in Wang Duo's fingertips. But the snow, which is almost negligible in weight, at the moment of touching Wang Duo's fingertip, is like the last straw that killed the camel, and it is like a towering group of mountains that weighs more than 10,000. At the moment of touching the fingertip, Wang Duo's finger is chapped, divided into 5 parts, turned into bits and pieces, and flew in all directions. Not only that, this chap situation, at this moment, is in constant expansion, rapidly and incomparably shrouded his whole body. Finally, it's the day. Wang Duo murmured, and did not show the slightest pathos, but showed a smile. Do not look at the body is broken, but greedily looking at Kunlun, looking at the front of the snow, mouth smile more brilliant, eyes, full of memory. The long river of memory, at this moment, seems to reverse in his heart. Everything that happened in the past, at this moment, all shrouded his heart. Everything that happened in Kunlun, bit by bit, swept his heart, as if he was the boy in Kunlun in the past. Finally, his body cracked, and the whole body floated like a bright dust. Immediately, it was dragged by the north wind, wrapped in the wind and snow, and floated to Kunlun. It is the holy land for all Kunlun practitioners. Life, death, and Kunlun ghosts are their hometown. Life and death cannot be separated. Congratulations, elder martial brother. Yi Tian knew that he had no way to change anything, so he could only hold his hands and salute Wang Duo to see him off. From Wang Duo's appearance, we can see that in the past, he was also a young man who was as rich as jade. He was by no means a monster. He had a unique demeanor. He should have been a moment's pride. But unfortunately, all of them dissipated and disappeared. His life ended. Yi Tian stood quietly on the fierce sword, watching the shimmering dust whistling to Kunlun, and finally dissipated in the wind and snow. At this moment, he felt a lot of loss, not only for Wang Duo, but also for himself. He did not know whether what happened to Wang Duo now would happen to him in the future. He and Kunlun Xiu are too close, or have become a member of them. This makes his strength, even compared with the past when he was in the spiritual realm, the fighting power in the same realm has been improved a lot. However, the danger he faced has also been increased 1,000 times. All this is related to Kunlun and even the Dark Ages, which he had never been involved in the past when he was in Fengsuan spiritual realm. At this moment, what happened to Wang Duo, the future, may happen to him. Next, he must be careful step by step, otherwise, as long as there is a little bit of carelessness waiting for him, I'm afraid there will be no turning over. I don't know how long it's passed. Yi Tian's disappointed eyes are clear again. The fierce soldiers are driven by the flying sword. Like a bright streamer, Yi Tian crosses the sky and goes to the mine. He knew that the dead had passed away, and his own road still had to go on. Maybe it was dangerous, maybe it was terrible, but he still had to move forward. The only thing he could do was to make himself strong enough, even if he dumped the ashes in Kunlun in the past and destroyed the terrible existence of Kunlun. A moment later, Yi Tian arrived in the mine. His appearance, like a light, immediately illuminated the hearts of all people in the mine. Grandfather, I know you will not leave us, you will come back to save us. I mean what I say. This is the ley wood sword. I give it to you. Please take me away from here. Don't leave me here. Let those monsters eat me. As soon as he saw Yi Tian, the fat Taoist immediately ran to Yi Tian's side, holding up the peach leywood sword with both hands, and flattering with his face. He's not a monster, he's my elder martial brother. Yi Tian grabs Lei's wooden sword and looks at the fat Taoist priest. Every word is light. Although his tone was very mild and peaceful, and there was no heavy tone, the fat Taoist sensed the terrible killing opportunity from this sound. He felt that as long as he dared to insult Wang Duo again, waiting for him, he would be dead. Yes. Without any hesitation, he quickly with a flattering smile, nodded to Yi Tian. Are you kidding? After seeing the picture of Yi Tian stretching out his hand to control the thunder and flame, and being able to fly with his sword, in his heart, Yi Tian now has no difference from the Immortals. He is against the Immortals. Even if he borrows 100 more courage, he doesn't dare. Mr. Yu, the situation in this mine has been dealt with. If there are problems in other mines, take me there. Yi Tian ignored the fat Taoist priest, turned his head and looked at the Jade Emperor. Wang Duo's situation has already shown that the monsters in the Devil Jade are the last seeds of firewood that Kunlun was saved when it was destroyed. These people should not exist in the world like the monsters they are now, and their hands should not be bloody because of their evil nature. He's going to help them find a relief, take them to Kunlun again. Yes. I'll take you right away without thinking, the Jade Emperor nodded. Immediately, he trotted in front of Yi Tian and took all the people out of the mine. Soon, a group of people came out of the mine. The fat Taoist priest walked out of the mine, looked at the snow and thought of what happened in the mine. In a moment, he felt as if he was separated from the rest of the world. He could not help but sit down on the ground and wail. At this moment, he had made up his mind that he would never do such business again. It's okay that nothing happened, but once it happened, it really took my life. Think of here, he is to run to Yi Tian's front, respectfully kowtow 3-ring head. He knew that if there were no Yi Tian, even if he had 100 lives, he would have been sent to the mine just now, and there would be no chance of escape. Give him 5 million for me, and go back to the hotel first. I'll take Mr. Yu to other mines. Yi Tian looks at the appearance of Fat Taoist, a burst of speechless, toward rather snow smile, way. It's a 1,000-year-old Leimu, and it's also the one left by the ancient friars when they went through the robbery. It's very valuable. According to Yi Tian's plan, he planned to give the Fat Taoist 10 million yuan. However, he saved this guy's life. Besides, he spoke disrespectfully to himself and Wang Duo, so he deducted half of his money. 5 million for one life. The Fat Taoist really made a lot of money in this business. Ah, thank you, master, thank you. Fat Taoist smell speech, a burst of ecstasy, toward Yi Tian as a chicken peck rice like crazy kowtow. He really didn't expect that Yi Tian would give him money. You know, he lost his bet to Yi Tian. Moreover, with Yi Tian's ability, let alone losing his bet, even if Yi Tian really won the bet, he didn't even have the ability to resist a star and a half. But there is no doubt that with the 5 million yuan, he can go back to do a small business without worrying about the food and drink expenses of his family. Mr. Yu, do you have a good sense of direction? If it's in the sky, can you recognize the location of the mine at this time? Yi Tian looked at the Jade Emperor and said with a faint smile. Should be okay? Hearing this, Emperor Yu hesitated and nodded. Well, then you and I will go with the sword. Hearing this, Yi Tian immediately reached for the Jade Emperor and pulled him onto the flying sword. Immediately, they flew to the sky. When Emperor Rao Shiyu heard Yi Tian's words, he had already guessed what he was going to do, but at this moment, he could not help but scream. The shrill voice sounds like an emperor, but more like a frightened rabbit. This is the royal sword god. One day, I can even stand on the flying sword. However, after a short period of shock and fear, these emotions in Emperor Yu's heart were replaced by excitement. He was staring at the vast sea of clouds and the snowstorm in front of him, and his mood was even more agitated. He was not only murmuring in his heart, but also wanted to shout if he was not embarrassed. Mr. Yu, I don't know where those mines with monsters are. Please guide me. Yi Tian looks at the Jade Emperor's appearance and smiles in his heart. No matter who he is, 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 no matter what his status is, he is in such a mood when his sword is brought into the sky for the first time. Immediately, he asks him in a deep voice. Oh, so over there? The Jade Emperor hears the sound, this just wakes up from the excitement, and quickly points out the route for Yi Tian. After a while, they came to the second mine. You wait for me here. I'll go in and come out later. After arriving at the mine, Yi Tian pressed down his flying sword and stood on the ground. He told the Jade Emperor that he would step into the mine. This Mr. Yi is really an immortal. I don't know how Lu Yanjiao got to know him. The Jade Emperor looked at Yi Tian's back with endless emotion. Although he had heard all along that there were strange people and scholars in this world who could not understand, he thought that those statements were just hearsay. Today, Yi Tian revealed his means to let him understand that it was not those people who were talking nonsense, but he himself was ignorant, and Yi Tian's idea was not true powerful, but also far beyond the so-called strange person situation, simply like the fairy characters in the myth. Boom! 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 Almost at the same time, along the pit, suddenly came bursts of fierce roar, thunder, strong fire, and the roaring sound of flying sword, which kept on hearing, shuttling and dancing. Each sound made the Jade Emperor shiver involuntarily. I can't imagine the intensity of the battle in the pit. Finally, everything is quiet. Yi Tian takes a young man with his sword to fly out of the mine. After a long time, he lands on the ground, takes him and runs to the next mine. Just like the first pit, the monsters in these demonic jades were all sealed up in the past, waiting for Dashi to arrive, break the seal, and reappear the glory of Kunlun Xiu in the past. Unfortunately, although the nature Lingyu protected their vitality, they spent a long time and lived until now. But unfortunately, the power of destruction contained in the ashes still engulfed their bodies and minds, nurtured their demons, and made them become what they are today. Until the Lu family opened the original stone and released them from it. They have long been in debt of blood, but this is not what they want. but what they are bound by. In the end, inspired by the original spirit fire, they restored their short-term cultivation and willingly let Tian end their life. Then, in the wind and snow all over the sky and in the distant sight of Kunlun, their bodies turned into ashes and disappeared in this strange and long-lost world. One mine after another, Tian's heart becomes heavier and heavier as he goes on. After the appearance of the original spirit fire and the recovery of mind, none of the Kunlun practitioners was willing to choose to continue to live like that monster. Instead, they all chose to let Tian send them on the road. All these things, you can imagine the nature of these Kunlun practitioners. But why is this kind of clan destroyed by people, so that all monks cannot survive? Is it true that for practitioners, the secret of eternal life and becoming immortal are more important than anything else? Can we really do anything for both? But Tian also knows that all this is just what he thinks. In this world, too many monks think that the secret of immortality and immortality are far beyond everything. Perhaps, this is what he, different from those friars, wants to become an immortal, to live forever and to be immortal. But if he wants to do anything for the sake of the two, he will even pull the whole world to be buried with him and set off a terrible disaster like the Dark Age, then he is not willing to do so. After a long time, Tian finally solved the last mine. The disaster that plagued the Jade Emperor for a long time finally came to an end. In the past, we used to mine the natural spirit jade here. After so many years, although the natural spirit jade will decline, there may still be some remains. It's the top secret place of Kunlun. Except for a few people, no one knows it. Besides, if it's not in Kunlun Palace, the attackers will not know it. Not only that, in the last pit, Tian got a piece of news from a dying Kunlun monk, which surprised him incomparably. In this world, there may still be the nature Lingyu, which is the closest to the immortal. There is no doubt that it would be a great thing for him if he could get the natural Lingyu, which can make his mana transform dramatically. Even in the future, it will be much smoother for him to face the coming one or to improve his cultivation. After seeing the position pointed out by the other party, Tian didn't have any hesitation, so he decided to wait and go. Thank you, Mr. Yi. When we get back to the city, I'll go through the delivery procedures with you immediately. The 4 veins will be yours from now on. After the Jade Emperor confirmed that everything was over, he took a long breath, then looked at Tian and said sincerely, I don't need 4. I just need to solve the 3 problems. Tianping quietly waved his hand and said faintly. The Jade Emperor suddenly looked at Tian in disbelief. He didn't expect that Tian would change his mind. You know, a vein is definitely a huge wealth, and it still falls from the sky, not to mention that the vein can be handed down and make generations rich. I like money, but I don't like robbing other people's money. Tian smiles and shakes his head, light way. Pursuing profit is the instinct of human nature, and Tian is no exception. While pursuing profit, he can't forget the word human nature. In Tian's opinion, it's fair to take 3 jade mines from the Jade Emperor to help him solve his problems. But if he wants another one for no reason, what's the difference between him and the Lu family? As for the Jade Emperor's idea of inheriting the family, for Tian, it's a real joke. Not to mention, Tian has no children now. Even if he has children, if he wants to be reduced to rely on the vein to survive, how much failure should he have? Mr. Yi is very pleasant. In this case, I don't want to insist. I will complete the delivery of the 3 veins in the first time. In Yudu in the future, as long as it's Mr. Yi's business, it's my business. If I have any excuses, I'll leave it to you. The Jade Emperor was deeply touched. After giving a deep gift to Tian, he followed closely and said, But I said before that you can choose 100 pieces of jade. Mr. Yi, you can't refuse this matter anymore. It's just a little bit of my intention. You must accept it. Good. Although Tian wanted human nature, he was not a saint who did good deeds without expecting to return them. He immediately nodded with a smile and followed the direction pointed out by Kunlun Xiu. Then he asked Emperor Yu, I want to go there. Do you know where it is? Let me see. After hearing this, the Jade Emperor nodded his head, followed Tian's hand and looked at it. He immediately took a breath of cold air and said, Mr. Yi, if I say something wrong, you'd better not go to this place. This place is very evil. It's not worse or even worse than these mines. The situation in that area is more evil than that in a mine, more vicious than that in a mine? When Tian heard this, he was surprised to see the Jade Emperor, but then his eyes suddenly moved, thinking of a sentence he had heard before. Where is Kunlun Guishu? Without any hesitation, he gazed into the eyes of the Jade Emperor and said in a deep voice. Yes, that place is Kunlun Guishu. Mr. Yi, have you heard of that place? Hearing this, the Jade Emperor nodded his head, and then said in surprise. It's really the Kunlun ruins. Tian nodded slightly, and then said, I've heard a little about the unusual place, but I don't know much about it. Tell me about it. Returning to the ruins in Kunlun is a very evil place. There are rumors in Jade that it is the gateway to the demon kingdom. The herdsmen who graze cattle and sheep would rather let them starve to death on the Gobi Desert than let them enter the cursed valley. Hearing this, the Jade Emperor trembled and told Tian the strange things that had happened in Guishu, Kunlun in the past. In Kunlun Guishu, there has been a legend that many herdsmen, when herding, risked to herding because they saw the beautiful water and grass in the Guishu and could avoid the wind and snow. However, as long as they entered the Guishu, they could not get out and could not escape death. Even so, the death of those people was extremely miserable. Everyone who died was dressed in rags, barefoot and glaring eyes. But surprisingly, they didn't have any scars on them. It didn't look like they were attacked by wild animals. A recent legend about Kunlun Guishu happened in the 1980s. When a herdsman was grazing, he suddenly encountered a snowstorm and his sight was blocked. He accidentally entered Kunlun Guishu. As a result, he never came out again. When found him as like as two peas, he found that he and the herd horses were dead in the valley, and they were dead alike. Moreover, it is incomprehensible that the herdsman had a gun in his hand, but when people looked through the telescope, they found that he did not fire a gun, and there were no scars on the horses who died miserably. After this incident happened, the local authorities immediately reported it to a higher level. Soon, the relevant authorities sent a geological team to this place to investigate and study, in order to find out the secret of this legendary death-forbidden area for countless years. However, not long after the members of the geological team entered the Kunlun ruins, it was sunny outside, but there was a blizzard in the valley, and there were bursts of terrible thunder. In the end, all the members of the geological research team were killed by ley, and their bodies were turned into charred carbon. Even the whole body was not left. Even up to now, their bones are still in the ruins of Kunlun. They can't be taken out and returned to their homeland. When the geological research team had an accident, I was half a kid. After hearing about it, I followed others to watch the scene. Unexpectedly, I saw that scene. After I came back, I didn't sleep for almost half a month. It's not just me. Since then, Guishu in Kunlun has been designated as a forbidden area. It's said that it's a thunderstorm-prone area. Guardrails have been built around it to block the entrance, so as to prevent people from entering when they pass by. With the narration, Emperor Yu's face turned white and his voice trembled. Even though he was highly praised by Yudu, looking back on the things he saw with his own eyes in the past years, he was in great panic. He even lit a cigarette and took a few puffs to calm down. Kunlun Guishu is so evil. People who enter Kunlun Guishu are just like those who enter Joshi Death Valley. As long as they enter, they can't survive. They can even induce abnormal extreme celestial phenomena. It's really incredible. Tian listens to this one sentence to narrate, also can't help but say a mouthful of air conditioning, return to the ruins of Kunlun more a bit of fear. I'm going to have a look. After a little hesitation, Tian finally made a decision. Although it's terrible to go back to the ruins in Kunlun, the natural Lingyu is too precious. If you don't try it, you will choose to give it up because of the danger. It's very disheartening. Mr. Yi, I know that you are not an ordinary person, but I really don't recommend you to go to that ghost place. It's so evil there. To put it mildly, even the wild animals in Kunlun Mountain know how to walk around Kunlun ruins. Hearing this, Emperor Yu immediately realized that Tian was determined to go to Kunlun to return to the ruins. After hesitating for a while, he looked at Tian and sincerely advised him to stop. Well, I'll take a look first. I won't do anything rashly. Yi Tian waved his hand at will, and then said to the Jade Emperor, however, this matter, heaven knows, I know, I don't want to let a third person know about it, do you understand what I mean? I understand. The Jade Emperor heard the sound and nodded in a hurry. He knew that the third person Yi Tian said must be Ning Xue. No doubt, he didn't want Ning Xue to know that he was doing such a risky thing and worried about it. Good. Yi Tian nodded slightly, and then said, all the things about the connection of jade mines, you are handing over with Miss Ning. You don't need to come to me. Yi Tian knows that if he tells Ning Xue that he is going to Kunlun to return to the ruins, Ning Xue is likely to follow him. Instead of this, let the Jade Emperor take over the jade mines to entangle Ning Xue for the time being. He takes the opportunity to go to Kunlun to return to the ruins. So the wood has become a boat, and Ning Xue can't say anything. Well, I remember. Emperor Yu nodded hard and kept Yi Tian's words in mind. A moment later, they turned back to Ning Xue's place. When they see Ning Xue, Yi Tian says to her with a smile that he is going to go to Kunlun these 2 days to pick 2 snow lilies. Ning Xue wants to follow them, but he is prevaricated by the fact that Yi Tian is handing over the jade mine. I'll be back in 2 or 3 days at most. If I go into the mountains alone, it will be more convenient. Don't worry. I'll be back the day after tomorrow at the latest. Yi Tian smiles and comforts Ning Xue, indicating that she doesn't have to worry about her own safety. Ning Xue hears Yi Tian's answer. After pondering for a long time, she finally nods and agrees. She can see that Yi Tian has made a decision, and it's meaningless to stop him. But although she agrees, she is still in a hurry to pack up all kinds of clothes and supplies for Yi Tian to enter the mountain. Mr. Yi, it's a snowy day recently, and there are often beasts running out to look for food because of the heavy snow. There are 2 guns in my mine. Do you want to take them with you? Jade Emperor also want to help Yi Tian some help, then to Yi Tian low voice way. The gun? Yi Tian hears the sound, raises eyebrow a smile, the Dynasty Jade Emperor who ponders asked one. Emperor Yu was stunned and immediately shook his head with a bitter smile. Yi Tian's strength and means are almost no different from those of Immortals. Guns are for ordinary people to have courage. He is such a strong man. Where do you need them? Ning Xue's action is very neat. Before long, she helped Yi Tian pack up his luggage for entering the mountain. She not only had down jacket, assault coat and fleece jacket, which were necessary for entering the mountain, but also bought some high-calorie food and even some medicinal materials from the supermarket. However, these things, for Yi Tian, are not necessary at all. With his cultivation, he doesn't need to bring these things when he enters the snow mountain. But he also knows that these things are Ning Xue's intention. Only when she accepts them can she feel at ease. Then he has no resistance. After he gets them, he accepts them into Shumi commandment. After everything is sorted out, the Jade Emperor drives Yi Tian to the area where he enters the mountain, and Ning Xue follows him. I'll wait for you to come back. After helping Yi Tian lift up the zipper of the down jacket, Ning Xue shows a big smile and looks at Yi Tian Dao. Don't worry. I'll be back in 2 days. You'll be busy first. Yi Tian nodded with a light smile, then turned his head and arched his hand to the Jade Emperor, and said, Mr. Yu, I'd like to ask you to help me with the things on Ning Xue's side. Don't worry, everything is easy to say. Emperor Yu nodded and assured Yi Tian. Are you kidding me? Not to mention Yi Tian's strength, he can't protect Ning Xue well. I'm afraid he won't save his life. Yi Tian's kindness to him alone is worth his life to protect Ning Xue's safety. Gone. Hearing this, Yi Tian smiles to Ning Xue. After hesitation, he raises his hand and pats her on the head. In a moment, he flies to the mountains with his sword. After a while, his figure disappeared in the storm. I'll wait for you to come back. But even so, Ning Xue still stands in the same place, staring at the direction of Yi Tian's departure. After a long time, she murmurs. Every word, such as the sea dry stone rotten, its heart does not change. Miss Ning, Mr. Yi has gone far. It's time for us to go back. After a long time, the Jade Emperor stamped his numb feet. After shaking off the snow on his head, he turned to look at Ning Shui and said. But as soon as he turned his head, he saw that there were 2 lines of clear tears hanging in the corner of Ning Shui's eyes. Yudu's wind and snow, the temperature is too low, Ning Shui's 2 lines of tears just dripping, it was frozen into a crystal clear ice beads. Seeing this scene, the Jade Emperor could not help sighing. Once upon a time, there were girls who shed tears for him, but unfortunately, fate made a man. At that time, he was not the Jade Emperor, but Yu Qier, who was despised by everyone. When he came back from the mountains, he was married to others. Now, they can't accompany each other. He hopes that Ning Shui, who was watching by his side, can be with Yi Tian. Has been a good walk, snow, until the white head. Yuda's snowflake is as big as a mat. When Yi Tian entered the mountain, he immediately realized that the snow in the mountain was a bit bigger than that in Yudu. Under the wind and snow, the dark brown mountain had become a crystal world of ice and snow. The wind in the mountains, in particular, was like a knife. Even when Yi Tian broke through the 7th floor of the cave, he had no invasion of cold and heat. However, the cold wind in such extreme weather still made him feel a stabbing pain in his cheek as if he had been scratched by a knife. Ha! But just as Yi Tian's sword was shuttling between the wind and snow, he suddenly saw that there was a shaky shadow in the front of the wind and snow. It was obvious that it was a climber in the wind and snow, and from the back, it was obvious that the other side was still a woman. This scene made him admire each other a little more. You know, on such a snowy day, even the people on the mountain have to avoid their sharp edges, but the other party is able to shuttle through it without fear of the cold. This endurance alone can't help being admired. However, to Yi Tian's surprise, this petite figure looks familiar, as if he had seen it somewhere. Yun Fei. When Yi Tian turns his eyes and scans carefully, he is even more surprised to find that this figure is Yun Fei of Shuiyuzong. However, Shuiyuzong has closed the mountain gate and is no longer intersecting with the outside world. How did Yun Fei come here? What's more, the world is really small enough. 2 people bumped into each other when they went into the mountain. But let Yi Tian some doubt is, he scanned around, suddenly found, always in Cloud Fei Jiao not from Meng, Meng not from Jiao or Shaoqing, unexpectedly not together. Why? Why is there anyone else? Who did Yun Fei quarrel with? But just when Yi Tian is ready to press the flying sword and fall on Yun Fei, he suddenly sees that there are 2 figures not far away. At this moment, after seeing Yun Fei, he speeds up and approaches him quickly under the wind and snow. And Yun Fei, after seeing these 2 people, also show the color of tension, hurriedly turn around, deep 1 foot shallow 1 foot step on the snow, to the mountains. Not only that, as Yi Tian can see, Yun Fei's breath is not right, and her movements are also very stiff. I'm afraid that she is injured, and she should have been running in the snow for a long time, and her physical strength is not enough. Yun Fei, I suggest you hand over that 100-year-old snow rabbit as soon as possible, otherwise, don't blame our brother for being rude to you. At the same time, those 2 figures are already toward Cloud Fei, shout out loud. 100 years of snow rabbit. Yi Tian's eyes can't help changing slightly when he hears the sound. This kind of elixir, he knows, was born in the extremely cold place in the snow. It's a good elixir to nourish the spirit, especially for those who are possessed by the devil. As far as he knows, the cultivation method of Shuiyuzong doesn't attach much importance to the idea of God. How could Yun Fei go into the mountain and pick this medicine at the risk of wind and snow? Is it difficult? When Shuiyuzong was practicing, he was possessed and his mind was damaged? Ma Tang and Shen Shang, I have no grievances with you. Shuiyuzong and Yu Duanquanmen are even more like each other. They have always been friends. If you 2 chase me like this, you are not afraid that my lord will tell you about it when he learns about it. Do you want you 2 to look good? Yun Fei walked forward quickly, but her physical strength seemed to be almost exhausted at the moment. Looking at the 2 men who came after her, she stepped back and warned. Ha ha ha, Yun Fei, don't put on airs there. We have a good relationship with Shuiyuzong, but what's the matter? The people in the mountain are the law of the jungle. You like the 100-year-old snow rabbit, and so do our brothers. What's more, it's something that our patriarch needs. Do you think we'll take the trouble to pick the elixir he needs? Will he want our brother to look good because of your words? As soon as Yunfei's words fall, Ma Tong and Chen Chang burst into a frenzy and laugh. Looking at Yunfei's eyes, they are like looking at a fool. Yunfei gnashes her teeth, but she has nothing to do. She knew that Ma Tang and Chen Chang were telling the truth. The rule of law among the people in the mountain was the law of the jungle. Although Shui Yuzong and Duanquanmen had a good relationship, it was impossible for the other party's patriarch to blame his younger brother for helping him pick the elixir just because Shui Yuzong said 2 words. What's more, she didn't know whether she had the chance to see the patriarch and tell her about it. And even if we don't say that, in the wild mountains, in the wind and snow, even if our martial brother killed you, who knows? You also want to tell your master, next life. However, everything is easy to discuss. If you honestly hand over that 100-year-old snow rabbit and then serve our brother well, we can't think about it. Let you go. At this time, Ma Tang looks at Yunfei with a ferocious smile. Animals, you want to die. The Cloud Fae hears this words, immediately the flower appearance color changes, gnashing teeth of roar away, the body all is shaking. So much reaction? When Chen Chang heard this, his eyes immediately changed. Immediately, he said with a playful smile, don't tell me, you'd better be perfect? Yunfei clenched her teeth and said nothing. Her cheeks were as red as blood. Obviously, Chen Chang's words are right. Today, he is really perfect. Ah, it's really a baby. Ah, elder martial brother, we have made a lot of money this time. We can not only get a 100-year-old snow rabbit to complete the orders of the patriarch, but also taste the taste of Yunfei, the famous jade girl in the mountain, and be her first 2 men. I really didn't suffer from this storm. Ha ha ha. Seeing Yunfei's look, Chen Chang's face became more and more ferocious and evil. He turned to Ma Tang and said, You dream. Cloud Fae gnashes teeth, a word a meal, way. Yunfei, why are you so stubborn? This kind of thing is not our brothers comfortable. You are also comfortable, moreover, we sleep, you can still save a small life, how good. If you serve us comfortably, I'm not sure we can give you this 100-year-old snow rabbit, isn't it better? But it's a pity that the more Yunfei is like this, the more proud Ma Tang and Chen Chang are. Their words are more and more vicious. Beast! Don't dream. Yunfei clenched her teeth and roared. When she saw the evil look of the 2 people, her heart became as cold as a stone in the snow, and her eyes showed a color of determination. She decided that if the 2 garbage really dared to do something to him, she would fight for a broken jade and never be humiliated. Whether it's a dream or a real one, you won't know later. However, if you can serve 2 men for the first time, I'm afraid you'll be happy to feel like you're dreaming. Ma Tang sneer, without any hesitation, a shake in the hands of Shuelian long knife, then toward the front approaching, to take down Yunfei. It's over. Cloud Fae whole body shivers, want to start, can feel the whole body up and down tired to the extreme, want to lift a hand all difficult. 2 men bullying a girl, don't you feel ashamed? But at this time, along the sky, suddenly came a cold voice. Someone in the sky? When Yi Tian's words fall, Chen Chang and Ma Tang immediately look awe-inspiring and look up to the sky in disbelief. As far as they can see, when they see Yi Tianjing's imperial sword standing in the wind and snow, looking down at them, their bodies tremble and almost no one falls into the snow. Yi Tian. It's not just them. Yunfei looks up in disbelief when he hears the sound. When he sees the shadowy figure, he screams out in surprise. Immediately, his originally tense body relaxes, just like a big stone falling to the ground. In a moment, his strength dissipates and he sits down in the snow. This period of running is later exhausted all the strength of the whole body, only one breath is still supporting himself to continue to run forward. At this moment, Yi Tian arrived. How can she not know, with Yi Tian's strength, to deal with these 2 guys, is absolutely easy to catch, more means, he is completely safe. In such a mood, her tight string, like a sudden relaxation, hands and feet soft, where there is half strength. Yi Tian. You are Yi Tian. God. Almost at the same time, after hearing the sound of Yunfei, Ma Tang and Chen Chang, who are also excited, Lingling, shiver. Then they are all soft. They can't help loosening the knife they hold tightly in their hands. Then they sit down in the snow and look at Yi Tian shivering. The 2 of them, from the disciples of Duanshuan sect who participated in the exploration of Xiao's corpse, have heard of Yi Tian's great name, and know that Yi Tian himself destroyed Tai's sect, forced Lu Bufan back, suppressed the disciples of Qingming's sect, and even changed the name of Qingming's sect to Mingzong. It can be said that in the hearts of all people on the mountain, today's Yi Tian is the first person worthy of it. In the face of such opponents, even if they lend them 100 more courage, they absolutely dare not act recklessly. They dare not do anything else except surrender and beg for Yi Tian's high hand to let them both die. Are you all right? Yi Tian can't help but be stunned to see that the two men are so quick to surrender. But he also knows that the shadow of the tree, the name of the people, and his reputation among the people on the mountain are also up. He immediately presses the flying sword and strides to Yunfei's side. After pulling her up from the snow, he puts a magic power into her body. Wen Sheng says, "I'm fine." Cloud Fei gets mana moisten, feel immediately, the body is warm. Aladav quickly shook head. However, her eyes to Yi Tian are full of gratitude. She knows that she is okay now, but if Yi Tian doesn't appear, she will be okay now, and it will be miserable to wait for her end. Two big men, it's okay for you to break your fist when you treat a weak woman like this. Yi Tian feels Yunfei's chi for a moment. When he finds that there is nothing abnormal except that her breath is weak and her ankle is injured, he puts down his heart. Then he turns his head and looks at Ma Tang and Chen Chang, with a deep tone and a light way. I'm sorry, we know it's wrong. I beg you, Master Yi, to treat us as a fart. We swear, we'll never dare again, Master Yi, we really don't know that Yunfei is your woman. If we had known that, we would not dare to do such a thing even if we lent our martial brothers 100, no, 10,000 courage. I beg you, sir. We have not made a big mistake yet, and we sincerely repent. Please spare our lives. When Chen Chang and Ma Tang heard this, they became more and more frightened. Kneeling in the snow, they raised their hands and slapped their cheeks for hundreds of times. Then they trembled. At this moment, in order to survive, they have nothing to care about, what dignity, what personality, in front of Yi Tian's strong strength, nothing to count. Yi Tian's woman Cloud Fei hears these two people's words, pretty cheek can't help but flow two white-red halo, in the heart shy incomparable. Spare you? When Yi Tian heard this, he sneered. He was just about to reap the lives of the two men with a fierce sword. But his eyes changed, and a playful smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, saying, "It's not impossible for me to spare you. You too, don't you like to force others to take off their clothes? Now, take off your clothes for me, and then follow me to a place." These two guys are sinful. It's not a pity to kill them. But as the saying goes, people have their own roles in this world, no matter what you do. Naturally, these two wastes are no exception. They have the value of waste utilization. Emperor Yu's description of Kunlun Guishu is extremely terrifying, and the experience of Death Valley also makes Yi Tian have a fear of this place. Therefore, he plans to ask these two guys to explore the background of Kunlun Guishu, and use their experience to judge the situation in the valley. Ah! When Chen Chang and Ma Ting hear this, they immediately excite Lingling to shiver and look at Yi Tian in horror. It's snowy and windy. The temperature on the mountain is 20 or 30 degrees below zero. Although the two of them are mountain people and have strong ability to resist the severe cold, in such weather, if they take off their clothes and walk in the wind and snow, even if they are immortal, they will lose half their lives, and they will definitely suffer from permanent frostbite. That kind of frostbite will attack and itch hard. If you can't tear the skin and flesh of the whole body, it's absolutely a kind of extremely painful torture. Why, no. That's simple. It seems that I can only send you on the road with one sword. Yi Tian hears the sound and smiles indifferently. He looks at Ma Tang and Chen Chang and says faintly, "Take off, let's take off." Ma Tang and Chen Chang shudder when they hear the news. How dare they have a little hesitation? They nod their heads in a hurry, bite their teeth, and take off their clothes, leaving only a pair of big underpants. In an instant, the terrible ice and snow, wind and cold, they will be wrapped up, put their hands in front of their chest, like stepping on the foot of charcoal, jumping up and down, skipping non-stop. What do you do, go back down the mountain, or come with me? Yi Tian naturally doesn't pay attention to these two clowns. He turns to look at Yunfei and asks, I'm with you. Cloud Fei hesitated for a while, to Leaf Day sink a voice, then struggle, then want to walk. The wind is high and the snow is fast. She has lost her way. She doesn't know how to go down the mountain. Moreover, when she leaves from Tian, she is worried that she will encounter similar things again. Don't worry. I'll take the bone off your ankle first. Hearing this, Tian nodded, and then squatted down. Without waiting for Yunfei to refuse, he rolled up her trouser legs, holding the pink jade feet like lotus root segments, gently shaking them, and then made a clattering sound. All right. Tian looks up at Yunfei and laughs. Then he takes out Shui Jigao from Sumi Jia and spreads it on the skin where he sprains. Such a beautiful jade foot, if you leave some scars, isn't it outrageous? Yunfei looks at Tian's appearance and feels the cold touch of the ointment and the warmth of Tian's big hand. Her cheek is red and bleeding. She grew so big, or ever had such intimate contact with a man. Not only that, Tian's carefulness makes her eyes more grateful when she is saved by Tian. However, in addition to gratitude, her expression was also a little disconcerted and complicated. If you keep these ointments, they will remove scars very well. The rest can be used by your sisters. Xiaoqing is so skinny that she can use it. Next, Tian closes the ointment and hands it to Yunfei, laughing. Thank you. After Yunfei took the ointment, she nodded with a smile, but the smile was a little stiff. What about Xiaoqing? Why isn't she with you? Tian didn't realize that Yunfei was strange. After looking around, he asked her, and I remember that your practice of Shuiyuzan doesn't seem to involve divinity. How can you come here to pick snow rabbits in the wind and snow? She didn't come with me this time. She's still in the door. Cloud Fei hears a sound, the vision immediately becomes some twinkle, avoided Leaf Day, slowly way. So it is. Tian nodded and then said, who are you picking this snow rabbit for? Isn't Shuiyuzan's cultivation method not related to divine thoughts? What's more, it's so urgent for you to come to Kunlun in the wind and snow. Can't you wait for the weather to be warmer? Because it's really urgent this time. Cloud Fei hesitates for a moment, after a random sentence, digs off the topic and says to Tian, I heard about the immortal corpse before. I thought you had left Kunlun now. Unexpectedly, you are still here. I still have something to do and you do. I need to buy some jade, so I stayed for a while, and then I'm going to Kunlun Guishu. Tian can hear that Yunfei doesn't seem to want to talk about the use of snow rabbit, so she doesn't insist on asking. After a light smile, she says her intention. Return to the market in Kunlun? Why are you going to that Jedi? Cloud Fei hears Leaf Day this words, the facial expression immediately one stagnates, can't believe of looking at him, surprised way. Do you know this place? When Tian hears this, he looks at Yunfei in surprise, and immediately finds out that Chen Chang and Ma Tang are also full of panic and uneasiness. It's obvious that these two guys should have heard the name of Kunlun Guishu. I'm not the only one. As long as I'm a mountain man, I've never heard of this place. Kunlun Guishu is one of the 4 famous Jedi of mountain people. Yunfei nodded, and then told Tian why he knew Kunlun Guishu. It turns out that the danger of Kunlun Guishu is not only known by ordinary people living nearby, but also explored by people on the mountain after learning about the abnormality of this place. However, no matter who enters Kunlun Guishu, they never come out of it again, even including several powerful people. Since then, the mountain people have made Kunlun Guishu, Changbai Tanshi, the Devil's Cave in northern Xinjiang, and Changgu in southern Yunnan the 4 major Jedi of the mountain people. When Yunfei comes to Kunlun to pick snow rabbits, she is reminded by the master of Shuiyue's sect that she must not enter the Kunlun ruins by mistake. Otherwise, she will die without life. Now, Tian says that he is going to Kunlun to return to the ruins. How can Yunfei not be shocked, worried about Tian's actions? You should know that the strength and terror of Kunlun Guishu is far beyond the world's expectation. Even if Tian's strength is indeed very strong, even far beyond the ordinary people's expectation, he may not be able to easily retreat from the Jedi, or even lose his life in it. I have something to do when I go there. Tian chuckles and says. If things don't matter enough, I advise you not to enter if you can. I know you are very strong, but if you venture into there, it's not good if something happens. The Cloud Fae hears a sound, immediately again to Leaf Day advise away. It's very important. I have to go whether I want to or not. You don't have to worry. At that time, you can wait for me at the entrance of Guishu. You don't need to accompany me into it. Tian shook his head with a bitter smile and said, Natural Lingyu is very attractive. If he can get it, his strength will change greatly. Not only that, but also the reason why he is so eager to enter the Kunlun ruins is not only because of natural Lingyu, but also because of those who come. What the descendants do when they arrive on the earth is to seek the secrets of immortality. Under such circumstances, they are bound to look for the rarely visited Jedi to find out the secrets and see if there are any secrets. If he can't enter the Kunlun ruins in time, he will leave this opportunity to those who come. If they find the natural Lingyu in the Kunlun ruins, they won't have to ask to defeat and stop them. Under such circumstances, although Tian is very clear that entering Kunlun to return to the market is an out-and-out adventure and may even lose his life, he has to do so to avoid the worst. Well then I'll be with you, and then you can take care of me. Cloud Fae hears a voice, have no any hesitation, ordered to nod, sink a voice way. Her life is saved by Tian, so she doesn't mind accompanying Tian on this trip, even if she is in danger. Well, thank you. Let's go. Let's go to Kunlun and go back to the market. Tian looks at Yunfei in surprise. He doesn't expect that Yunfei is willing to accompany him when he knows that he is going to Kunlun Guishu. He immediately nods and thanks. Then he takes Yunfei to Kunlun Guishu. As for Chen Chang and Ma Tang, they naturally walked in the front. Although they were shivering with cold, they were even more frightened at the thought of returning to the ruins of Kunlun. However, they did not dare to say a word more. They could only bite their teeth and keep shivering forward with the terrible chill. Shuiyuzong now, is everything okay? Walking on the road, Tian asks Yunfei. Everything is very good. After the closure of the sect, all the teachers and sisters practice in the sect. Everyone's entry is very gratifying. Moreover, because of your reasons, Zio Oceandi is completely stable. We don't need to worry about the damage of Zio Oceandi anymore. The Patriarch has made bold suggestions to take this opportunity to make Shuiyuzong the top 3 of the sect in the future. When Yunfei heard this, she immediately showed a smile on her face and told Tian the whole situation of Shuiyuzong. Then she said, Sister Su Qing is also very hard to practice now. She always practices late into the night and enters the country very quickly. Maybe it won't be long before she is a strong person at the prefecture level. Moreover, she has good popularity in the clan. Tian smiles and nods when he hears the speech. After the closure, he gets Shuiyuzong, which is inherited by the ancient monks. When he is born again, he will certainly look brand new, so that the people on the mountain and the world can know this group of women again and understand their strength. What about Shaoqing? How is she? But, to Tian's surprise, Yunfei didn't mention Shaoqing. And this, more let him realize, from oneself to Cloud Fae open mouth to ask these things, Cloud Fae has been avoiding the content about Shaoqing. As if, that lively and lovely little girl, now has become a taboo topic. After what happened before, Tian has seen that Yunfei and Shaoqing are really sisters in love, and Yunfei's personality is very gentle and generous, and it's impossible to be like some girls. They are just plastic sisters, and they can't recognize each other. The only explanation is what happened to Shaoqing, and even the one who was possessed by the devil is likely to be Shaoqing. Shaoqing, she is very good and has made great progress. The Cloud Fae hears a sound, the facial expression is obvious as Zhang, then pretends relaxed to Leaf Sky, Wei. If something happens to Shaoqing, I hope you don't hide it from me because you are afraid of troubling me. As long as I can help, I will. Tian hears these words, after frowning, looking at Cloud Fae, sink a voice Wei. Although Shaoqing is a little bit fierce, she is very kind. Tian likes her forthright and kind personality. If Shaoqing really encounters any trouble that can't be solved, Tian doesn't mind and helps him solve the crisis. It's really nothing. Cloud Fae dry smile, Tian shook his head. Although Snow Rabbit has the function of warming and nourishing the mind, the effect is just easy. If someone is possessed by the devil, it may be able to save his life if he just uses it to nourish, but if he wants to keep his cultivation, he can't do it at all. At this moment, Tian completely feels that something is not right, and it's still related to Shaoqing. He immediately says to Yunfei, "What?" It's said that Snow Rabbit is very clear, and it has a wonderful effect on those who are possessed by fire. As long as you take it, will it get better? When Yunfei hears Yi Tian's words, her expression changes greatly. She looks at Yi Tian and loses her voice. At this moment, her expression is even more flustered. Cultivation is the second life for the people on the mountain. If Snow Rabbit really can only save his life, but he can't keep his accomplishments, even if he wakes up, he will suffer more than death. Do you think what others say is credible, or what I say is credible? Yi Tianping static smile, looking at Cloud Fei, light way. Yunfei smell speech, immediately silent down. Yi Tian's strength is high, can't imagine, in this case, what he said, natural than other people's credibility is higher. Tell me if you have something. Don't hide it from me. I can help you. I think you don't want Shaoqing to lose his accomplishments, do you? Yi Tian looks at Yunfei and says sincerely. He felt that Yunfei picking Snow Rabbit should be related to Shaoqing, but could not confirm. It's Shaoqing. When she was practicing, she was possessed by the devil, but now she has no time to think about it. I heard that Snow Rabbit has a wonderful effect on treating people who are possessed by the devil, so she came to Kunlun to look for picking, want to take it, and go back to treat Shaoqing. After Cloud Fei has been silent for a long time, slowly told the truth. It's Shaoqing. Hearing this, Yi Tian was stunned. He was sure that he was confused. At the same time, he frowned at Yunfei and said, how can Shaoqing be possessed when he is practicing? The cultivation method of Shui Yuzong is not too complicated, and the requirement of mood is not very high. Unless the mood fluctuation is too great during the cultivation, it is difficult to be possessed. Shaoqing's mind is simple, innocent, and straightforward. It's very difficult for such a person to be possessed in his practice. Cloud Fei hears this words, silent, don't speak, just looking at Leaf Day, the vision is very complicated. Why, it's still about me. Yi Tian looks at the expression of Cloud Fei, after Zhang, some dare not set channel. After Cloud Fei is silent a little, nodded, confirmed the words of Leaf Day. How could that be? How could it have anything to do with me? Yi Tian is at a loss. He really can't understand how Shaoqing's obsession has something to do with him. It's too evil. If Yunfei doesn't say this, he can't believe it. Younger martial sister Shaoqing, she. After a long time, if she made a decision, she clenched her teeth, clenched her fist and said, she likes you. Since you left, what she said and what she thought was all about you. As a result, when she was practicing, when she was not careful, there was a deviation in her cultivation, which hurt her mind and led to her being in a coma. Up to now, she hasn't woken up. Because Shaoqing liked me, she became obsessed with me. Yi Tian listens to these words, his head is buzzing. For a moment, he doesn't know what to say. Especially when he and Shaoqing met for the first time, the other side regarded themselves as the most heinous scum man, and they were disgusted to the point of no more. But now, because they like themselves, they become possessed, and they have a strong sense of absurdity. Just see Cloud Fei's facial expression, he knows, Cloud Fei didn't lie, this matter is a fact. We didn't know it at the beginning. It was only after Shaoqing's younger martial sister fainted and kept reciting your name that we found out. Yunfei sighed. This is really. Yi Tian is speechless. He looks at Yunfei and shakes his head with a bitter smile. At this moment, he finally understood why Yunfei talked about Shaoqing as long as he mentioned her before, and didn't say what happened to Shaoqing. After all, a girl, because of a man, is possessed when she practices. This is a very shy thing. Yunfei naturally wants to cover up for Shaoqing. Yi Tian, if Snow Rabbit can't cure Shaoqing's infatuation, what else can it do? Whatever you need, you can say. No matter it's going up the mountain or down the sea of fire, I'll help younger martial sister Shaoqing fight for it. I'll try my best to find a way to recover his accomplishments. And at this time, Cloud Fei is already looking at Leaf Day, nervous and anxious inquiry asks away. It's not easy for people on the mountain to practice. It's more important than life. It's a pity if Xiaoqing's cultivation road is destroyed by being possessed. Don't be so troublesome. Take Snow Rabbit as the main medicine, with several auxiliary medicines, and refine a heart-clearing pill. At night, I'll help you refine it. When you go back, I'll take it back to her. Yi Tian waved his hand and said, Thank you. Cloud Fei hears sound, immediately grateful looking at Leaf Day, sincere thanks. You're welcome. Yi Tian waved his hand with a wry smile on his face. Whether he wants to or not, it's all because of him. He needs to help Xiaoqing recover. However, all this was unexpected and unexpected. He really couldn't understand how Xiaoqing, who had great prejudice against himself at the beginning, liked himself. But there is no doubt that, no matter whether he is willing or not, from then on, he has another debt. For a time, Yi Tian and Yunfei fall into an awkward silence. This matter is not only what Yi Tian didn't expect, but also Yunfei. When he heard it, he was stunned for a long time, and then it was a reaction. And I can hardly believe my ears, at the beginning, Xiaoqing and Yi Tian, but repeatedly make a conflict, Xiaoqing also to find Yi Tian's trouble, is she to stop? But now, Xiaoqing is to Yi Tian to a never forget, and even because of him and go crazy. Wow, boom. But when Yi Tian was a little distracted, there was a violent sound of rolling and falling rocks and snow not far from him. Next to him, Yunfei's figure immediately fell down and disappeared in an instant. Along the place where he stood, a lot of snow powder was floating in the air, and a dark hole was also exposed. It is obvious that this area is covered with snow, because both of them are absent-minded at this time, so they ignore it and slip. You two, wait on it honestly, dare to run around, I'll cut your dog's head with one sword. Seeing this, Yi Tian said a word to Chen Chang and Ma Tang, and then, without any hesitation, the imperial sword flew to the exposed snow nest. Because Kunlun Mountain is covered with ice and snow all year round, and because of the wind and sun, there are many such huge ice caves in many places. When they are covered with snow, they are not obvious. But once they step on the ground, they can still survive. But if they meet the thorn-shaped ice cones formed by the wind, they are afraid that they will be pierced. If it's in the void, Yi Tian doesn't mind the speed of the flying sword. But the key is that if you are in the ice cave at the moment, if the speed of the flying sword is too fast to break the sound barrier, there will be a terrible sound explosion. In case some fragile structures of the ice cave collapse again, which will lead to the outbreak of a great avalanche, in case you are hit by the terrible snow, the violent airflow, even if Yi Tian is on the 8th floor of the cave, will not be able to resist. It's a real trouble. Under such circumstances, although Yi Tian shuttled all the way, he was a little far away from Yunfei. But the next breath, his eyes immediately saw that at the bottom of the ice cave, there were sparkling waves, obviously there was an underground dark lake. This scene made him feel relieved for a long time. There is water bearing, although the moment of impact, there will be some pain, but at least, Yunfei's life can be safe. Poop in the blink of an eye, Yunfei fell like a falling stone into the deep pool at the bottom of the ice cave. The terrible chill was so deep that it swept her body and made her feel numb and stiff at this moment. Like a piece of lead, she sank to the bottom of the lake uncontrollably. Shwa! But almost at the same time, Yi Tian had already reached the surface of the lake, followed closely, and with a strong hand, he lifted Yunfei out of the lake. Wow! But before Yi Tian could catch his breath, he suddenly heard the sound of snow falling around his ears, and there were more snowflakes in the air. However, this is the depth of the ice cave, even if the outside world is snowing, it doesn't fall so fast. Click click. Next, Yi Tian heard that there was a tiny crack sound all over the ice cave. At the beginning, the sound was extremely subtle, but at last, it condensed into a hole and produced a huge resonance. Even at this moment, the whole ice cave began to shake and vibrate, as if, next breath, it would collapse and snow fall. No! Seeing this, Yi Tian immediately realized that although he had just been careful enough, the strong wind brought by the flying sword still destroyed the structure in the ice cave, leading to the fracture of some weak points, which would lead to the symptoms of a great avalanche. Boom! Without any hesitation, Yi Tian's magic power surged like a tide, and all of it poured into the flying sword under his feet. In an instant, along the flying sword, there was a bright sword, and the speed of the flying sword increased suddenly. Along Yi Tian and Yun Fei, there were ripples in the void. Then, the terrible sound burst, and the flying sword was like a streamer, to the outside of the ice cave, the flying ice and snow far behind. Boom! Almost at the moment when Yi Tian's sword came out of the ice cave, there was a violent roar behind him. The ice cave that had existed suddenly began to collapse and collapse, forming a huge vortex. It was as if a greedy glutton suddenly appeared underground, opening its mouth and swallowing everything around it. That's close. Yi Tian looks down at this scene. He is now the cultivation of the 8th floor of the cave, but looking at this scene, he still has a feeling of lingering fear. He had no doubt that if he didn't own the flying sword, he might be at this moment, but it was the terrible airflow brought by the collapse of these ice and snow mountains and rocks that would attack him into terrible flesh and blood fragments, and the people would end up here. Those two guys don't know whether they are dead or alive now. What's more, when the snow collapses, the terrible snow fog has blocked Yi Tian's sight, making him unable to see whether Chen Chang and Ma Tang are alive or dead. However, he didn't care about the two rubbish. He just thought that if they were killed by the wind and snow, some of them would be too cheap. Not good. But at this time, Yi Tian suddenly felt that his hand was not right. When he looked down again, he was surprised to see that Yun Fei had just fallen into the water pit of the ice cave. At this moment, he was blown by the cold wind in the mountains, and the water on his body was frozen. He became an ice sculpture. Under the thin ice armor, Yi Tian even saw that Yun Fei's face was not only pale, but also his lips had completely lost their blood color. Even at the corner of his mouth, there was a strange smile. This kind of smile is just a sign of extreme low temperature and severe body temperature loss. Similarly, once such a sign appears, it means that the vitality of the human body has passed seriously and is on the verge of dying. We must let her body temperature rise as soon as possible, and change these wet clothes, otherwise, she will be finished. Without any hesitation, Yi Tian's eyes change. He holds Yun Fei in his arms with one hand and transfers a magic power to his body. After protecting his heart, lungs and brain, he runs his flying sword with all his strength and shuttles among the mountains. He wants to find a secluded place to treat Yun Fei. He had planned to build a snow house, but unfortunately, the mountain was full of floating snow that had just fallen. As soon as he grasped it, it would be scattered. There was no way to build a snow house to avoid the wind. Flying sword shuttle, a moment later, his mind will be locked in a dark cave. What a heavy smell! As soon as he entered the cave, Yi Tian smelled a strong and fresh smell. This smell is unique to wild animals. Not only that, but also some forest bones scattered on the ground of the cave. This scene makes Yi Tian more sure that the people who lived in the cave before should not be small animals, but big ones in the mountains, such as snow wolves or snow leopards. However, the master of the cave should have gone hunting now, so he didn't come out to meet the two uninvited guests, Yun Fei and him. However, it's lucky for him to leave home and go hunting, otherwise, he must pay the price of bleeding for that. The wind blows. After entering the depth of the cave, Yi Tian's hands suddenly drink. In a flash, along his sleeve, a fierce hurricane suddenly flew out, sweeping the whole cave, fanning out the bones and other things on the ground that gave off the smell of fishy smell, making the taste of the cave fresh. It's not so good. After everything is done, Yi Tian looks at Yun Fei again, and immediately finds that although she protects her heart, lung and brain with magic power, the vitality of her body becomes more subtle at this moment, and has reached the point where it is almost invisible. But he understood that it was because he had sealed her heart, lung and brain with magic power. Otherwise, even if she was a mountain person, she would have died long ago in this -20 or 30 degree weather when she fell into the pool of the ice cave and was blown by the cold wind. The most urgent thing is to take off her clothes, which have turned into ice armor, and let her body recover its temperature. Without any hesitation, Yi Tian immediately made a decision in his heart. With a move of mana, along his fingertips, suddenly a wisp of flame flew out, emitting wisps of pure heat, quickly and incomparably spread to Yun Fei's whole body, so that her clothes, which had been frozen hard, suddenly softened, dripped water, and fell on the ground along the corner of her clothes. This means, the control of firepower has reached the level of exquisite and meticulous. The blazing firepower has not damaged Yun Fei's skin. Forced by the situation, offended. After that, Tian looks at Yunfei and says, "Offend me." He carefully pulls the zipper of her down jacket open, and then takes off her clothes one by one. Hiss. However, as soon as his clothes faded, Tian couldn't help taking a breath of air. Yunfei usually wears loose clothes and can't see her figure clearly. But at this moment, after her clothes are taken off, her figure is so slim. The skin is as white as snow. What's more, the slender waist can only be grasped by Ying, but the chest is towering and can't be controlled by one hand. That kind of sharp contrast can be called the acme. Even if it is like Tian, at this moment, he can't help shortness of breath, rapid heartbeat, and the speed of blood wandering in the body has also accelerated a lot. Especially, when this enchanting figure is matched with Yunfei's full face with dust charm, Tian fully understands what is called angel's face and devil's figure. I don't want to win. Tian felt the change of his body inside in his heart. He could only contemplate the sun and suppress evil thoughts in his heart. But, even so, when Tian takes off all the clothes on Yunfei's body, the graceful scene in front of him makes him feel thirsty. His throat is like a handful of sand, dry and astringent. I wish I could find something and suck it hard. No matter what you see, you are all red powder skeletons. Tian meditates in his heart and wants to calm his heart, but it's a pity that his words have no effect at all. What he practices, after all, is not the Buddhist mental dharma that can make people clear their minds and lose all their desires. What he sees is not a skeleton, but a red powder, and 1,000 charming red powder. In particular, he thought that he would have to put his palms on Yunfei's body to carry out massage. He would put the mana into every part of her body, and force the cold poison formed by the chill out of her body. That would make Yi naturally feel uneasy. I don't know if he can resist the temptation and touch some places he shouldn't touch. I'm trying to save people, not anything else. After a long time, Tianmeng clenched her teeth and made a decision. He infused mana into her hands and pressed the acupoints around Yunfei flexibly. Her tentacles were warm and greasy. After a short time, her body immediately became warm and pale pink, and a layer of crystal clear sweat appeared. All this is just the sign that the cold poison turns into water vapor and is forced out of the body. It's done! Seeing this scene, Yi Tianchang takes out a towel and his dry clothes from Zumaji. After helping Yunfei dry her body, he puts on the clean clothes for her. Then, while she is still in a coma, he lights a campfire and uses the temperature of the flames to make Yunfei more comfortable. Whew! But just at this time, along the cave, suddenly there was a strong fishy wind pouring in. The owner of this cave is back. When Yi Tian heard the sound, he immediately realized that it was the beast that lived in the cave. He immediately blocked Yunfei behind him and looked forward warily. Meow! Almost at the same time, the wild animals entering the cave had already noticed that someone had invaded their territory and immediately gave out a roar. However, the roar of the wild animals was very strange, not like a beast, but like a cat. The only difference was that the voice was a little rough and dumb. It's a snow leopard. Hearing this, Yi Tian immediately understood what the owner of the cave was. When he was in the mountain temple, Lu Yanzhao once told him that the snow leopard is the most interesting creature in the Kunlun Mountains. It is the sprout spirit of the snow mountain. Although it looks very dignified, because its hyoid bone has almost completely ossified, it can't make a majestic roar like its cats, lions, and tigers. Instead, it makes a sound it's like a big cat at home. Sure enough, at the same time when the meow sound fell, along the entrance of the cave, a beautiful beast came in, covered with gray-white hair, but covered with tan black spots, about 1.45 meters long, looking like a super large cat. However, different from its lovely appearance, this product has a half-large antelope in its mouth. The blood drips down the corner of its mouth, which is very ferocious. Presumably, when it was out hunting, it sensed the avalanche and was reluctant to give up its prey, so it bit it, took it back to the cave and enjoyed it slowly. Meow meow. At the same time, the snow leopard has also seen Yi Tian, whose green eyes suddenly stand in a line. At the same time, the snow leopard crouches and makes a threatening roar. Kitty, I'll borrow your nest and give it back to you when it's used up. As long as you don't mess around, we can discuss everything. I won't blow you up. Yi Tian heard that it was clearly a threat, but it was inexplicable that she was a charming voice. She couldn't help laughing. Looking at the snow leopard, she said with a smile. Meow. It's a pity that although snow leopard is known as the spirit on the snow mountain, it is a kind of intelligent wild animal, which can be compared with the spirit animal of Xializi. After hearing Yi Tian's words, instead of retreating, he roared. Immediately, he bowed his body, and then jumped up with great flexibility. While pressing his two front paws against Yi Tian's chest, he was covered with the snow-bloody mouth, but also open, Moriran fangs, bite to Yi Tian's neck. Big meow, you are not good. It seems that I have to blow you up today. Yi Tian sees the snow leopard's action, smiles and shakes his head, and then, with a flash of body shape, runs the wind escape method, and suddenly disappears from the snow leopard's sight. Meow meow. Snow leopard were to see such a strange picture, can't understand, this head 2 feet of prey how can suddenly disappear, then confused cry out. But the next moment, it will feel its back, suddenly sank. Meow. When he turned his head again, he immediately saw that the guy, who was regarded as a two-legged prey, disappeared out of thin air, and the next breath appeared on his back, with his legs tightly clamped to his body. Without any hesitation, he roared, his body was like a weak and boneless snake, and turned his head to bite Yi Tian. Boom! But before his head turned, he felt that the top of his body suddenly sank, and the two-footed prey became as heavy as a hill. He pressed it heavily on the ground. No matter how hard he struggled, he could not twist it. Kitty is not good. Blow up your cat's head. Not only that, Yi Tian explored his hand again at the same time, and 5 fingers fell on the snow leopard's hairy brain bag, grabbing its brain skin. The tiger's but is still untouchable, not to mention the brain gate of the snow leopard, who is of the same race as the tiger. When Yi Tian's hand falls, the snow leopard immediately flies into a rage and tries to wriggle its head to free the brain skin from Yi Tian's hand. Bang! Cannot wait for it to struggle, then feel, the head is also a sink, unexpectedly by Yi Tian's hand, pressing the head, hard hit on the ground. In the fierce roar, snow leopard immediately felt that its big head was about to be broken, and its eyes were full of stars. It shook its head hard. After lifting it up, its big eyes were full of confusion, and it seemed that it could not understand how this small two-legged prey could have such great power. But immediately, it is fierce and hard to level, and struggles to shake his head again to give Yi Tian a bite. Kitty, you're so bad. You're mostly in debt. Seeing this, Yi Tian shakes his head helplessly and slaps the snow leopard on the buttock. He follows him closely. His mind is like a dagger and throws it at the snow leopard. Meow. The huge force of slapping and the attack of Xinyan immediately made the snow leopard, who was struggling wildly, stop. Its roar was no longer as fierce as before, but with a kind of fear and flattery, as if it had become a real kitten. That's a good cat. Hearing this, Yi Tian turns over and jumps to one side from the snow leopard. Meow meow. Although Yi Tian has left, the snow leopard's fear of him has never been reduced, and even more dare not escape. Instead, it stays in the same place, huddles into a ball, and makes a low cry. Then it leans on the ground with its 4 claws to the sky, revealing its white belly to Yi Tian. This guy has enough knowledge and interest. If he knows he can't fight, he begins to show weakness and please. Yi Tian looked at this scene, a burst of laughter in his heart, but looking at its hairy body and tail, he immediately waved and said, "Come here." Hearing the sound, the snow leopard crouched on the ground and climbed carefully. It looked like his pet. Lie down here and don't move. Yi Tian and so on after it walks past, immediately grasped the snow leopard's tail, put on Yunfei's body. Snow leopard's tail is thick and fluffy, and it's very long. It's as long as its body. Such a big tail, covering Yunfei's body, is just like a small blanket for her. It has the function of keeping warm. However, animals have always been extremely sensitive to other people's moving their tails. Snow leopard is no exception. Aware of Yi Tian's action, they immediately turn their head and look at Yi Tian. Their tails curl and they want to put them away. When Yi Tian stares at them, they can't help but be unwilling. They lie on the ground and dare not move. Well. At this time, Yunfei finally wakes up from the coma. When she feels heavy and hot, she instinctively touches it. However, as soon as she caught the hairy tail, she was startled and opened her eyes. At the same time, the snow leopard noticed that the tail was moved again, and immediately turned back and looked at Yunfei. Snow leopard ah! For eyes are opposite, Cloud Fei looking at that huge head, still have that pair of sun green eyes, can't help, the body trembles, exclaim a voice. She knows that Snow Leopard is the overlord of Snow Mountain. She can't be blinded by its beautiful and lovely appearance. It doesn't eat cat food, but fresh meat. What's more, its favorite food is living animals. However, when she breathed out, she was confused that the snow leopard, even when she heard her own scream, was honest and didn't dare to move. Don't worry, don't be afraid, kitten is subdued by me, very good. At this time, Yi Tian's voice suddenly rang out in her ear, followed by, he said with a smile, big cat, roll on the ground to have a look. Gululu Snow Leopard heard this, immediately extremely humiliating body dish up, hit a roll on the ground. Cloud Fei Zhang looking at this scene, eyes full of dull. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, who could believe that the fierce snow leopard would be so clever? However, with Yi Tian, it seems that it's not strange to see anything incredible. Do you want to feel its belly? Yi Tian looks at the startled capacity on Cloud Fei's face. After a light smile, he says with a smile, come on, turn over a white belly. Snow Leopard is not willing to, but it is honest and upright. It shows her white and hairy belly in front of Yi Tian and Yunfei, and meow meow called twice, that cute appearance, as if really obedient and clever super large kitten the same. This kind of hairy and soft sprout has always been extremely lethal to women. Even though Yunfei usually behaves like a fairy who doesn't eat fireworks, at this moment, seeing the snow leopard's lovely appearance, she still doesn't feel any resistance. She can't help but carefully reach out and scratch its belly. The finger falls on the belly, and the snow leopard's green eyes immediately show the fierce on, and the sharp claws also show out. Originally, he wanted to attack. He turned his head to give Yunfei a claw, and then bit her hard. You can see that Yi Tian's cold eyes were trembling, and he didn't dare to move anymore. He even cooperated with Yunfei's hand and gently twisted his body along the nose and throat. There were bursts of snoring, like a cat that was scratched and comfortable. This is a good cat. Yi Tian, satisfied with the nod, smilingly praised the snow leopard. Snow leopard claw scratched, but the heart is full of grievances, in this world, have their own big cat? It's so cute. Although Yunfei is a little weak at the moment, this scene still makes her smile on her face. This kind of opportunity to get close to the snow leopard and touch its belly is not for everyone, even the mountain people. Ah, my clothes. But then, she suddenly felt that her actions were not right. When she acted, her chest became relaxed without the previous sense of restraint. To be exact, she felt free. When she looked down, she was surprised to find that all her clothes had been replaced. In particular, when she turned her head and looked at the campfire, she was even more impressed to see that all her clothes were being held up by the branches and baked by the campfire, including her most intimate underwear. In the cave, in addition to her, there are only Snow Leopard and Yi Tian. Naturally, Snow Leopard has no ability to help her undress. The only possibility is Yi Tian. And this also means that from now on, in front of Yi Tian, even if there is no secret, no matter what it is, he will see it all. But the more so, the more flustered she felt. Her cheeks were so red that she was about to bleed. She wanted to find a way to get in. After living for more than 20 years, her body and those of Shui Yuzong have never seen it, let alone a young man. He not only looked, he also touched. After that, Yunfei suddenly remembered that when she was in a coma, she felt that something full of heat swam up and down her body. Before that, she thought it was the big tail of Snow Leopard, but now she remembered that it might be Yi Tian's hand. You fell into the ice cave puddle before, and your clothes were frozen. People were in a coma because of the loss of temperature. I had no choice but to help you take off your clothes, and then use the magic power to help you massage. In an emergency, I don't have so many scruples. I want you to understand more. Yi Tian looks at Yunfei with some guilt and tells the truth. Although he was desperate at that time, it was the girl who suffered from such a thing, and there was no loss for him. It doesn't matter. You couldn't help it at that time. At the moment, Yunfei also remembered that she had fallen into the ice hole and puddle before. At that moment, the bitter cold made her feel that her life seemed to stop suddenly at that moment. It's really lucky to be able to survive now, but there's no doubt that this luck was given to her by Tian. But this lucky, the leaf day has already given her full 2 times. Under such circumstances, what can she do to criticize Tian? In her heart, to Tian, there is only deep gratitude and shyness. Don't worry, I'll keep my mouth shut about this matter, and I won't talk to anyone about it. This time you went into the mountain, you were alone and didn't meet me. Tian sees this, hastens to Cloud Fei to sink a voice way. It's okay, thank you. Yunfei smiles and shakes his head. He looks at Tian's eyes and feels more grateful. This man is not only strong, but also kind. What's more, he is so warm. If any woman is lucky enough to have him, she must have found a good companion for life. Even at this moment, even her heart can't help a ripple. Although it's the most old-fashioned way for heroes to save beauty. I'm tired of watching it on TV and in books. After experiencing it for 2 times, if I don't even have a ripple in my heart, how cold my heart is. He is the man that younger Martial sister Xiaoqing likes, but then, in Yunfei's heart, it suddenly appears that Xiaoqing is lying on the bed, mindless, murmuring the picture of Tian's name. Because Xiaoqing likes Tian, she has become obsessed with it. If she inserts another knife, what is it? Just such a man. If you miss, then, I'm afraid it's hard to meet the second one in this life. Once you see Tian, you'll miss your whole life. At the same time, Tian is already picking up the antelope killed by the snow leopard. Although the antelope was killed by the snow leopard, its 2 thighs are not damaged at all. It's a good piece of meat to cut it off. The best way to cook such a large piece of mutton is to roast the leg of mutton. However, thinking that Yunfei is very weak at the moment and is more suitable for eating warm food, Tian divides the leg of mutton into 2 parts, half of which is roasted in the volcano, and the other half is to make a pot of mutton soup. The eye looks at the leaf sky mind to read a move, then took out the pot bowl ladle basin, all sorts of seasonings. Cloud Fei eyes almost all nearly all see straight. And Tian's heart is full of emotion. These things are brand new, which Ning Shui prepared for him before he entered the mountain. This scene, let Tian's heart, can't help but rise some waves, the so-called most difficult to accept beauty grace, I'm afraid nothing more than this. But at this moment, he realized that not only Ning Shui, who was far away from Yudu, but also another beauty, N, was about to make him suffer. A moment later, a pot of steaming mutton soup came out of the pot with a pungent smell. There was also a roasted leg of mutton, which was burnt yellow and fragrant. The grease dripped down the campfire and sent out a zzzla sound. It could be said that it was extremely attractive. For a moment, the meat in the cave was delicious. Even the snow leopard forgot to roll. He looked at the leg of sheep on the campfire and the soup in the pot, and ignored the viscera that he loved most in the past. When we finish eating, there's something left, it's yours. Go to the corner and squat honestly. The smell is so bad that it affects your appetite. Tian waves his hand and rushes the snow leopard, who has been eating meat all the year round, to one side. He picks up his rice bowl and gives Yunfei a bowl of mutton soup and hands it to her. Snow leopard is squatting in a corner of the cave. His big green eyes are full of anger and grievance. This antelope is obviously from it. This cave is obviously from it. But now, this guy has robbed his cave, almost Rua explodes his head and belly, and even eats his prey. He doesn't even let himself taste it. It's bullying leopard. Boiling hot soup, just drink down a mouthful, Yunfei will feel happy to tears. She came to Kunlun to look for snow rabbit. During this time, she lived in the mountains. When she was hungry, she ate some self-heating food. When she was thirsty, she drank some mountain spring. What she missed most was not such a bowl of hot soup. Even at this moment, she feels that Tian is like such a bowl of hot soup. She can always give comfort to people when they are most depressed, helpless, and cold. After a while, a bowl of mutton soup came to the bottom, steaming mutton soup into the stomach. Yunfei immediately feel, the body becomes warm, all the chill are dissipated. If it's not enough, add it again. It's cold on the mountain. There's something in the stomach to resist the cold wind. We are all people in the Jianhu. There's no need to pretend to be a lady in front of me. It's okay. Yi Tian can see that this bowl of mutton soup doesn't satisfy Yunfei, so he looks at her and says with a smile. Hearing this, Yunfei looks at Yi Tian awkwardly. Then she goes to the pot and adds a big bowl to herself, and cuts 2 pieces of roast mutton. Cloud Fei this time, be regarded as suffer a big crime. Yi Tian looks at Yunfei's wolf-like eating method, and he can't help sighing. In the past, Yunfei's image in his heart was that kind of fairy who didn't eat fireworks between people. When eating, she was slow. No matter what she did, it was light. It seemed that everything in the world could be ignored by him. But now Yunfei, where there is a little bit of the old fairy look. But the more so, the more respect Yi Tian had for Yunfei. You know, Yunfei didn't have to suffer this crime, but she was for her younger martial sister. He even felt that he was afraid that Yunfei was ready to ignore life and death when she decided to come to Kunlun to look for Snow Rabbit. For the sake of the younger martial sister of the same school, I can't help but be moved by my sense of loyalty. It's Snow Leopard, looking at Yunfei's eating, the color of resentment in Sin Green's big eyes. At this moment, it has become rich again. It felt vaguely that, according to this way of eating, I'm afraid I would lose the idea of picking up some leftovers. I'm sure I can't taste the taste of mutton soup and roast mutton. Fortunately, although Yunfei was very hungry, she was a girl after all. She didn't eat much. After drinking a bowl of mutton soup, she didn't continue. Don't look around. Come and have dinner. The rest is yours. Seeing this, Yi Tian took out a large iron basin, threw the remaining soup and half-baked leg into the iron basin, and waved to the snow leopard crouching in the corner of the cave, laughing. On hearing Yi Tian's words, the snow leopard ran over in a hurry, and then, like a sudden plunge into the iron basin, began to chew with a bang. Eat. Yi Tian looks at the snow leopard's appearance and shakes his head with a bitter smile, and scolds with a smile. However, he also knows that the reason why snow leopards want to drink mutton soup and roast mutton is not that these things are fragrant, but that they also need the salt. After all, if they want to live in the freezing Kunlun Mountains, the salt must be indispensable. Many snow leopards usually like to lick the soil layer on the rock wall in some saline alkali land to meet the body's demand for nutrients. The taste of salt and alkali is not as good as that of refined salt. After a while, the snow leopard licked the big iron basin clean, even chewed the bone of the roasted leg into pieces and vomited on the ground. Not only that, after eating these things, snow leopard is even more satisfied, actually take the initiative to rub the big head on Yi Tian and Yunfei, to show intimacy. This scene, make Yi Tian and Yunfei can't help laughing. Have a good rest. We'll go back to the market when the snow stops tomorrow. Immediately, Yi Tian looks at Yunfei and says with a smile that he knows that the reason why Yunfei's situation is so serious this time is that in addition to the severe cold, another reason is the serious lack of rest and a good sleep. For her, it's more effective than taking any panacea. Well, thank you. Yunfei understands that Yi Tian is understanding himself. Otherwise, with his strength, he will go to Kunlun to return to the market. Good night, see you in the morning. Yi Tian nodded with a smile, and immediately put out the campfire, leaving only some embers to provide temperature. As night fell, the whole cave fell into the dark, but listening to each other's breathing, whether Yi Tian or Yunfei, at this moment, there was a feeling that the way was not clear, just like some invisible fog flowing in the air. In the end, it was the snoring of Snow Leopard, which finally broke the atmosphere and became the best lullaby to let them fall asleep. A night without words. Soon, it was the next morning. Yi Tian wakes up early, makes a bonfire, and rolls some raw meat sealed in the snow into a pot of mutton soup. After drinking the mutton soup, they set out to go to Kunlun Guishu. However, what Yi Tian didn't expect was that the snow leopard didn't know whether he was addicted to the mutton soup or whether he was really turned into a sticky cat. He ran around them and became a pioneer. From time to time, he took 2 snow rabbits to offer treasure to Yi Tian. Your charm is really great. Even the snow leopard has been conquered by you. Yunfei looked at the scene and was amazed. You know, snow leopard, a wild animal, is extremely fierce and tenacious. Even if it is raised from childhood, it cannot be domesticated. But now, such a big snow leopard, just a short day, has become like Yi Tian's pet, not seen with his own eyes. Who dares to believe it is true? I also think that my charm is great. Yi Tian heard this, smilingly raised eyebrows, and then joked, "How, have you conquered?" I'm going to say something wrong after all. After yesterday's events, Yunfei's attitude towards him has always been strange. If Yunfei misunderstands something, it's not good. At the same time, the Cloud Fae hears this words, also is already will attain the head to droop, in the vision some bashful, also some Yuan. Even if you conquer yourself, after all, it is impossible. What's Yunfei's expression? Is she interested in me? Yi Tian sees Yunfei's expression, his expression suddenly changes, his eyebrows slightly wrinkle, and his secret way is not good. A Ning Shui now has led him some dilemma, feel like a slag man, if say, one more Cloud Fae, then what to do? Meow meow. At this time, the snow leopard suddenly rushed to the front of a few big stones, growled low, followed closely, jumped over. Beast! The beast surnamed Yi bullies us, and you also bullies us. Do you really think our brothers are soft persimmons? Without waiting for Yi Tian to spread his divine perception, the voices of Chen Chang and Ma Tang came immediately after walking along the big stone. These two goods are so lucky that they are still alive? But the luck of both of them is really bad. Yi Tian hears the sound and raises his eyebrows slightly, showing a playful smile. Beast, take off your skin and make a fur coat for your grandfather. Immediately after that, Chen Chang and Ma Tang, who had a piece of antelope skin rolled on their body, rushed out from behind the boulder, holding a sharp stick to kill the snow leopard. Cough. But before they could wait for their sticks to fall, they heard a low cough not far away. When they blinked, they immediately saw that Yi Tianjiang was standing not far away, smiling at them. He's still alive. Why is he still alive? This scene, let Chen Chang and Ma Tang instantly dull, can't believe looking at Yi Tian, suddenly sprouted a kind of wanna cry without tears mood. They thought that after the avalanche, even if Yi Tianxiu was extremely high, he would be killed in the wind and snow if he could enter the ice cave to save people. So they took the opportunity to escape and kill 2 antelopes. They used their skin to keep warm and flesh to feed themselves. Only today can they survive. But where do they think Yi Tian actually survived, and intact, as if, that terrible avalanche with him, just like pediatrics? Almost at the same time, Snow Leopard felt the strong breath of these two people and was extremely smart. She turned around and ran. Then she hid behind Yi Tian, stretched out her head from his leg and rubbed it on her thigh. It was like asking Yi Tian to do justice to him. What is despair? Despair is that you meet a person who is 1,000 times stronger than you, no, 10,000 times stronger than you, and then you get away from him. When you think you have escaped from your life and can be natural and happy, you look up and find that the person is standing in front of you and looking at you with a smile just like a ghost in broad daylight. At this moment, Chen Chang and Ma Tang have understood this kind of despair to the bone marrow, no, deep into the soul. What, you too, want to skin my cat? Yi Tian looks at the flattering appearance of the snow leopard, and laughs and scolds that the product has completely lost the dignity of a leopard. It seems that it has really become a kitten, but at the same time, he also decides to get justice for this guy, so he looks at Chen Chang and Ma Tang smilingly, laughing and chanting. Forgive me, sir. We didn't know it was your pet. I'm sorry. When Chen Chang and Ma Tang heard this, they shivered all over. Then without thinking, they fell on their knees and kowtowed to Yi Tian. Are you two apologizing to the wrong person? Yi Tian looks at these two people's appearance, light a smile, play flavor. Meow meow. At the same time, Snow Leopard has obviously seen that Chen Chang and Ma Tang are very afraid of Yi Tian. They immediately shake their heads and stare at Chen Chang and Ma Tang fiercely. They start to roar. I'm sorry, Snow Leopard grandfather, it's our two mistakes. Please forgive us. We swear that we will never dare again. We know we are wrong, please Snow Leopard grandfather, adults don't remember villains, let us both fart. Chen Chang and Ma Tang watched the scene, cursing the dead Snow Leopard in their hearts, kowtowing and begging for mercy. However, as soon as they lowered their heads, their tears would come out in an instant. Anyway, they were also one of the disciples of the 3 sects and 5 sections. They used to walk in the world and were looked up at and treated respectfully by people. But now, they are reduced to the point of kowtowing to a mountain animal. Who do you want to argue with? Snow Leopard looks at these two people's heads knocking like chicken pecking rice, and stares at Yi Tian. After hesitating for a moment, Cat sneaks to the two goods, turns around them, takes his tail on their face, and one person smokes a guy. Seeing that these two goods dare not have any reaction, he completely feels relieved and boldly jumps to their two places on the back, stretched a big stretch, patted the head of this, touched the back neck of that. However, this guy is really having a good time, but the urine of Chen Chang and Ma Tang is about to come out at the moment. After all, whatever you say, the two of them are all leopards with sharp claws and sharp teeth. You can take them to see the Lord Yin with a flick or a bite. Fortunately, the snow leopard was full before, but now it only has a heavy heart to play with, and has no interest in their two pieces of stinky meat. One person slapped them on the head, patted them dizzy, and then jumped down from them. Then he idly stretched his waist, walked back to Yi Tian, and rubbed his trouser legs with his big head. Who? See Snow Leopard jump down, Chen Chang and Ma Tang, two people immediately a long sigh of relief, people almost paralyzed on the ground. After all, it's really frightening to feel that life and death are hanging on the line and people are wandering at the gate of death. I remember that I once said that if you two like to take off other people's clothes, you will be able to walk in the wind and snow. What's the matter? After a while, you two put on your clothes again. Who gave you so much courage? But at this time, Yi Tian's eyes toward them two people light a sweep, cold way. Take off, let's take off. When Chen Chang and Ma Tang heard this, they immediately shuddered. Then they quickly took off their antelope skin. It was only after a long time that they got a layer of warmth, but now they have to take it off again. This kind of feeling really makes people feel that they want to be immortal, want to die, and want to live in agony. Let's go. Yi Tian toward two people indifferently swept an eye after, Chin A Yang, light way. Chen Chang and Ma Tang were already desperate. Naturally, they didn't dare to say a word more. Without any hesitation, they hurried forward with their arms in their arms. In the wind and snow, when the sky was getting dim, the group finally saw that a huge valley appeared in front of them. What's more, the surrounding mountains are now covered by wind and snow. From a distance, it's crystal clear. It's all covered with white snow. However, the valley is not even covered with wind and snow, which is out of place with the surroundings. This scene, from a distance, makes people feel that the valley is like a gateway. However, the deep and dark appearance, it seems, as if to lead to, is not heaven, but deep and unpredictable hell. This is the end and destination of Yi Tian's trip, Kunlun Guishu. Meow meow. Almost at the moment of seeing the valley, the snow leopard stepped back involuntarily, pressed tightly against Yi Tian, his body trembled constantly, and even made a series of low growls along his mouth. That look, it seems, like a sense of what a terrible and unpredictable crisis. Even you are afraid of here. Yi Tian sees this and looks at the snow leopard in surprise. His eyebrows can't help but wrinkle slightly. He knew that the snow leopard's appearance at this moment was just a kind of fear of Kunlun Guishu. It was obvious that not only the Kunlun people living at the foot of the mountain, but also the wild animals living on Kunlun Mountain. Their fear of Kunlun Guishu was deeply rooted in their blood. In the deepest part of the world, the terror is intertwined. I don't want to be near here at all. Let's go and have a look. Yi Tian raised his hand and rubbed the snow leopard's brain melon seeds, then glanced at Chen Chang and Ma Tang and said in a deep voice. Although Chen Chang and Ma Tang are reluctant, they both know that necking is also a knife, and necking is also a knife. If they don't listen to Yi Tian's words, they will die faster. They can only walk in front and walk to Kunlun Guishu. Snow Leopard did not move forward, but stay in the same place, staring at Yi Tian's back, green eyes dribble around, hesitating whether or not to follow. Meow. After a long time, Snow Leopard such as made a decision, hopping rushed to Yi Tian's front, big head and his legs rubbed. Now, it has found that this is the real thigh. Holding this thigh tightly is absolutely no harm to itself. You have followed me too. Yi Tian was surprised to see the snow leopard coming. You know, this kind of animal is extremely sensitive to danger. Once it is detected, it will definitely dodge without thinking. But now, this guy actually chooses to follow himself, which is definitely a very painful struggle. Since you can trust me, I will give you a fortune. Yi Tian chuckles and rubs the snow leopard's big head. He has made a decision in his heart to give it a great fortune. Let it really be the king of Kunlun. It's really the place to return to the ruins, where life and death dance together. Next, Tian looks up at the ruins of Kunlun. As soon as he can see, the ruins and the outside world are just like two parts of heaven and earth. The green grass is full of shade, the streams are murmuring, and even the wildflowers are swaying gently. They look full of vitality. However, what is different from this exuberant vitality is that in the lush green grass and the rhizome of wildflowers, there are many kinds of animal skins and bones, not only wild animals, but also human bones and skulls. The empty eyes, staring directly at the sky, as in the silent telling of their tragic situation. Death and life, which are totally out of place, are perfectly blended into a whole here. While they are full of vitality, they make people shudder. It seems that this is the blending place of human and hell. This is not a good place. Yunfei looks at the green grass in front of her, but it's full of white bones and the strange picture of life and death. She can't help showing a look of fear in her eyes. At the same time, she trembles and opens her mouth, and involuntarily gets closer to Tian, as if she is looking for help. It's not just Yunfei, Chun Chang, and Ma Tang. At this moment, looking at the scene in front of me, my whole body is shaking madly, and I feel a kind of great terror. Not only that, but also in their hearts, they had a very bad premonition that something big was going to be bad. Look at that! Immediately after, Yunfei suddenly reaches out his hand and points to a place in the valley. In his voice, he trembles and says to Tian Dao. Tianxuan immediately saw that on the grass not far away, at this moment, there were two groups of charcoal black corpses. When he scanned carefully, he found that it was a rabbit and a fox. It's obvious that when the two were chasing each other on the mountain, the rabbit had nowhere to escape. In the end, he had no choice but to rush into the Kunlun Guishu, and the fox was reluctant to stay in the ice and snow. It was not easy for the fox to catch the prey in the mouth, so he fought hard to catch the rabbit in the valley. As a result, they both died for love and turned into charcoal. This scene, let Tian determined, this Kunlun Guishu is indeed worthy of the reputation, but also a fierce and stubborn place. However, the precious level of Lingyu in nature, that is, such a fierce and terrifying place, can make it survive to this day. Otherwise, it has been so long since the collapse of Kunlun. I'm afraid it has already been taken by others. It's not his turn to collect it now. You two, go in and have a look. Closely following, Tian turns his head, full of playful smile, to Chen Chang and Ma Tang, word by word, light way. What? When Chen Chang and Ma Tang heard this, their hearts immediately trembled and looked at Tian in horror. At the moment when they saw Kunlun Guishu, they both guessed that the reason why Tian didn't kill them and left them alive was for them to explore the secret of Kunlun Guishu. Now it seems that, of course, that's it. However, this Kunlun Guishu is a true Jedi. If they go in like this, aren't they looking for their own death? Why, it seems that you two are reluctant? Tian saw that there was no movement in the two goods. He raised his eyebrows and looked at the snow leopard. He said faintly, "Cat." Meow. Hearing the sound, the snow leopard immediately steps forward. Sen Green's eyes stare at Chun Chang and Ma Tang, growling low, "Cute but deadly. Master, please let us go. We really repent and know our mistakes. As long as you let us go, we are willing to be cattle and horses for you. Yes, sir, please forgive us. God has the virtue of living well. We are two human beings at least. Please, for the sake of this, forgive us both. We'll go to the mountain to catch rabbits for you. Can you do the experiment with rabbits?" When Chen Chang and Ma Tang hear this, they immediately look at Tian, kneel down on the ground, banging their heads, and beg repeatedly, hoping that Tian can take back his life. "Rabbit is so cute. How can I hurt it? It's just the two of you who are the best." When Tian heard this, he raised his eyebrows and gave a faint smile. He looked at Chun Chang and Ma Tang playfully and said indifferently, "If it wasn't for the sake of saving the lives of these two guys to do experiments, they would have been dead when they were plotting against Yunfei. Although God does have the virtue of living well, for Tian, it's good for good people, not evil people like these two guys. People like them are waiting for them. It's cheap for them to let them die. Rabbit is so cute, how can I be willing to hurt it?" Chun Chang and Ma Tang's heart is about to be broken at this moment. What are they doing all the way to endure the wind and snow? No doubt, they are trying to survive. But now it's better. In the end, it's all in vain. What's waiting for them is still a dead end. Are you going to go there on your own, or do you want me to help you both? Tian frowns, tone gradually become cold down, looking at these two people, word by word, light way. Go, let's go by ourselves. Chen Chang and Ma Tang look at each other, their eyes are full of despair. They want to despair, but next breath, think of Tian before the arrival of the Imperial Sword picture, the heart will suddenly tremble, the color of despair in the eyes, already rich to the point of no more. They understand that in front of Tian, who has overwhelming power, no matter how hard he struggles, the only thing waiting for them is death. If he resists, he will die faster. On the contrary, if he chooses to enter the Kunlun ruins, he can also gamble his luck. Words fall, two people look at each other, shivering, then walk to the entrance of Kunlun Guishu. But at the moment of reaching the mouth of the valley, the two people who originally faced the front turned around almost at the same time, and then pushed them away from the valley in the opposite direction without thinking. It is obvious that they intend to push their companions into the valley, and then use this opportunity in exchange for their own lives. Human nature is so vicious, especially at this critical moment. The two of them do not hesitate to put their lives first, and want to take each other's lives to fill in. These two goods are so vicious that they don't even want to let go of their fellow disciples. When Tian saw this scene, he immediately sneered and shook his head. In particular, I think that Yunfei around me is to let her younger martial sister live, so she risks to go deep into Kunlun in such a season. Such a move, and Chen Chang and Ma Tang is a very sharp contrast. And the same, such rubbish, what is the need to live in this world? Thinking of this, Tian's feet gently hook up a mass of snow and kick them. The snow broke into two groups in mid-air. At the moment when it fell on them, the originally soft and incomparable snow became as terrible as gold and stone. As soon as the snowball hit their bodies, Chen Chang and Ma Tang, who were struggling to push each other into the valley, immediately flew into the Kunlun ruins like a broken kite. Click click. Almost at the moment when the two men entered the Kunlun ruins, the original quiet valley suddenly heard bursts of thunder. Then, a series of bright lightning suddenly appeared, like a whip, heavily hit Chen Chang and Ma Tang. With such an understatement, Chen Chang and Ma Tang, two great living people, immediately became two great charcoal people. Rob thunder. But in the flash of the lightning, Tian's eyes were suddenly awe-inspiring. From the terrible lightning, he felt a sense of J&J's destruction. However, what he can't understand is that thunder robbing often occurs when some adverse things appear between heaven and earth. What's the matter? There is a terrible existence of thunder robbing in the ruins of Kunlun. How can the mountain people, ordinary people, and wild animals who have strayed into this place not die because of the supreme power of plundering thunder and creating changes in heaven and earth? Wow! Then, along the deepest part of the valley, the winds suddenly rolled up. The sky, which was still very clear, suddenly became gloomy. Immediately, the strange wind rolled up in all directions, and the fist-sized snowflakes floated out of the void and landed on the bodies of Chen Chang and Ma Tang. Just a few breaths of time, the extreme cold will be their two big charcoal people, into two big black popsicles. Shwa! When the chill comes, Chen Chang and Ma Tang turn into black popsicles and fall to the ground, and their lives come to an end. The roaring wind and snow that originally lingered in the valley, as well as the shining thunder, suddenly stop, and everything returns to peace. If not on the ground, the remains of Chen Chang and Ma Tang are still there, which almost makes people suspect that what just happened is just an illusion. What an evil place it is. Even if Yi Tian was the emperor of Dan who had been in Fengsu and Lingyu for 200 years in the past, this strange scene still gave him a kind of horror. Fortunately, he learned the strange situation of Kunlun Guishu in advance and chose to let Chen Chang and Ma Tang enter first. Otherwise, if he walked in rashly, he would not know what kind of trouble he would encounter. The situation, perhaps, is the same as it was in the Valley of Death. Try to see if my mind can cover this area and see what the clue is. After that, Yi Tian thought to himself that he would put his mind into the ruins of Kunlun. He wanted to explore whether he could use his mind to shine through all things and understand the secret here. Hiss. In Kunlun Guishu, it is obvious that there is an extremely powerful field, and there is also restraint to Shenyan. Even if Yi Tian is now on the 8th floor of the cave, Shen just feels that a powerful force, like Hui Jian, suddenly strikes, cuts his heart, and cuts the Shen into 2 parts, which is a fierce stab thanks to his tenacious heart and clear mind. Otherwise, I'm afraid he would be in agony. But even so, he took several breaths of cold air.
Try the eye of heaven again.
Next, Yi Tian turns his eye to the sky and wants to shine through the Kunlun ruins. He scans the place to see what field exists in the valley and whether he can find a safe way to crack it. He opens it, enters it safely, and then retreats. These fields it's so complicated, and every field is made of nature. It has the array of weather and thunder, the array of wisdom and sword, and even the array of imprisoning the body.
Here, it's like a sea of fields. But just a glance once swept, Leaf Day then can't help but, again repeatedly poured to draw a few big mouthfuls of air conditioning. Yuan Tian's eyes shine through, and he can see that in Kunlun Guishu, there are all kinds of fields everywhere he can see. Not only the functions of each field are not the same, but what's more incredible is that these fields are not done by human, but are naturally generated, and are perfectly intertwined into a whole, such as a gazelle. It's like a sheep hanging on a horn. There's no clue.
This also means that he wants to crack the field again and again. At this moment, it is a complete failure. After all, as long as he leads the field here, it will move his whole body. If he is careless, the consequences will be totally incalculable, and even may appear. Instead of successfully breaking the field, it will lead to the explosion of many fields, sweeping his body. It is the situation that the vitality is shocked and rolled and turned into fly ash. Can you place your mind on the fierce flying sword, and use its speed to travel through the field to explore and determine the location of the natural spirit jade?
Yi Tian ponders and constantly seeks ways to solve the problem.
However, this idea has just come out, and is dismissed by him. The field of Kunlun Guishu is so fierce and treacherous that it can't be speculated by common sense. The speed of fierce soldiers' flying swords is really fast and they are dead objects. But the field of Kunlun Guishu, no matter whether you are dead or not, will attack you as long as you dare to enter rashly. He worried that if he really took the risk to put the fierce soldier flying sword in, I'm afraid it's not that he found the position of nature Lingyu, but that the fierce soldier flying sword was attacked by the field. If there's something wrong with the flying sword, or if it's sealed in the Kunlun ruins, then he will really lose his wife and lose his army.
It's not worth the loss. What is the reason for this valley to become what it is today? Is it just because there is natural Lingyu in it that so many natural fields gather?
Yi Tian gazed at the nearby Kunlun ruins, his heart full of fog, and the excitement of seeing Kunlun ruins faded away. Although he is only a few steps away from the valley now, it is just a short distance between life and death. Especially at this moment, the sky is gradually darkening. The surrounding dark sky makes the ruins of Kunlun become hazy. The huge valley, in the twilight, looks like the mouth of a wild animal. It's terrifying and ferocious. It seems that as long as you get close to the peaceful and deep valley, you will be trapped by the devil and be killed. Swallow it up.
Ah cho ah cho.
The winter night in Kunlun Mountain is extremely cold, especially around Guishu, Kunlun. Although Yunfei changed into Yetian's clothes and had food in her stomach, she could not help sneezing and coughing when she was blown by the cold night wind. Yi Tianquan went to see that the mask on Yunfei's face had already formed a layer of frost, and even his eyelashes had crystal clear ice crystals.
Let's go.
Let's find a place to stay away from the wind. We'll wait all night and come back at dawn tomorrow.
Without any hesitation, Yi Tian made a quick decision.
Although Yunfei is well after his treatment, his disciples are still in poor health and can't stand the cold.
Moreover, now that they have arrived at Kunlun Guishu, they don't need to worry about this night.
After all, since even he has no way, then almost no one in the world can have a way. If anyone dares to enter rashly, they are waiting for their next visit. It's no better than Chen Chang and Ma Tang, who were driven into the Kunlun ruins by him.
There's only one way out. So, leave for a while and have a good day's cultivation. When tomorrow is full of spirit, it's not too late to think of any good way to look for the natural Lingyu here. Meow meow.
At this time, the snow leopard seems to have noticed that Yi Tian is going to give up and go back to the market in Kunlun. He immediately screams a few times with excitement, and then turns to look at a valley not far away.
You have a home over there?
The Leaf Day hears a sound,
pick eyebrow, doubt away. Naturally, the spirit of Snow Leopard is not as strong as that of Xializi. He can't understand what Tian is saying, but he still runs forward for a few steps, then stops, looks back at him and barks twice. This guy is inviting us to his house. Let's go and have a look. Hearing this, Tian can't help laughing a few times. Then he takes Yunfei and walks to the valley. Meow meow. As soon as the Snow Leopard entered the valley, along the valley, it immediately heard some low and milky calls. Then, several little snow leopards stumbled out of a cave from a distance, and they should have smelled the smell of the big snow leopard. It turns out that this guy, as well as the children, has brought us here to present treasure. Seeing this, Tian was stunned and couldn't help laughing. It can be seen that Snow Leopard really trusts itself now, otherwise, it is absolutely impossible for him to bring himself to see its children. However, the little snow leopard looks soft and cute. Even Tian feels that he wants to feel it in his hand. What a lovely little snow leopard. Tian is such an old man, not to mention Yunfei. When she sees these round, fluffy, and cute little snow leopards, her eyes immediately brighten up. She immediately steps forward to hold these little snow leopards in her arms and have a good rua. Meow. But just before she got close, a voice full of threat came from the cave. Then, a snow leopard, bigger than the one who brought them, rushed out of the cave, blocked the little snow leopards behind, looked at them, and roared with threat. Kitty, tell your husband that we have no malice. Seeing this, Tian steps forward and blocks Yunfei behind him. He sends out his mind to frighten the big snow leopard. At the same time, he makes a deep voice to the snow leopard who follows them. The snow leopard that followed us was a male snow leopard. Yunfei hears the sound, lowers his voice and whispers to Tian. When Tian heard this, his face immediately showed an embarrassed smile. He didn't pay attention to the sex of snow leopard. He just thought that the big one was male. Unexpectedly, he got confused. Meow meow. At this time, the snow leopard who followed them came to the big snow leopard with 3 jumps and 2 jumps. He rolled in front of her and showed his white belly. After kicking on the ground, he stood up and rubbed his hairy brain melon seeds on the big snow leopard's chin. The flattery was almost invisible. You're the one who's really losing our old man. Tian sighs and sighs with a smile. He is very flattered by the snow leopard. Meow meow. But Snow Leopard obviously has no sense of shame. After rubbing his wife, he turns his head and looks at Tian and Yunfei. Then he shouts to his wife. It seems that they are not enemies. Meow. Although the family status of the snow leopard who follows Tian is not very high, it is still trusted by the big snow leopard. Hearing its voice, he stares at Tian and Yunfei, and his fangs slowly recede. However, the vigilance in his green eyes never decreases. When Tian saw this, he bent down and stretched out his hand and gently touched the little snow leopards twice. The big snow leopard looked at its action with vigilance and kept growling low. But seeing that he didn't mean any harm, he just touched it and drew back his hand. Then he stopped growling low. Well, you can touch it too. Tian sees this just turns ahead to look at Cloud Fade a smile to recite away. Hearing this, Yunfei bends down and touches a little snow leopard carefully. Then she scratches the little snow leopard's belly. The big snow leopard looks at her and just stares at her. Then she opens one eye and closes the other, pretending not to see her. Meow. At this time, the snow leopard, who followed them, ran to the entrance of the cave happily, then turned his head and looked at Tian and cried twice. It seemed that he was inviting them to enter the cave. Hearing this, Tian nodded to Yunfei, then followed the snow leopard and walked into the cave. It has to be said that whether a family has a woman or not is really different, even for snow leopard. In the nest of the snow leopard who followed them, it smelled bad, bones were thrown everywhere, and some of them were drowning. But in the cave of the big snow leopard, it was clean and dry, and there was a special feeding area. It could hardly smell any fishy smell, only some of the smell of the snow leopard itself. Later, it will be called Dabai, you will be called Xiaobai, and they will be called Xiaobai. After finding a clean place to sit down, Tian points to the snow leopard and the big snow leopard and gives them names with a smile. Meow meow.
At this time, Xiaobai fawns at Yi Tian, groans and turns around him, his head constantly rubbing on his thigh.
It's just like a big cat. It's looking for something to eat. Okay, here you are. Yi Tian shook his head with a bitter smile. He didn't expect that he would come to Kunlun to return to the market. Before he got Lingyu, he raised a cat first. Immediately after that, he took some beef jerky and biscuits from Zumaji, tore open the outer package and threw them to Shuebao. The smell of biscuits and beef jerky makes the snow leopards who haven't eaten them hum and haw. Snow leopard Debai's eyes are also looking this way. However, it is very wary, although the fragrance is attractive, but there is no impatient rush past or bite. It has to be said that although Xiaobai is a snow leopard, he is very considerate. After seeing this, he immediately takes some beef jerky and biscuits and runs to Debai. After chewing some of them, he signals that Debai will eat them. Seeing this, Debai lowered his head and ate a little with reserve. But the salty beef jerky and sweet biscuits make its eyes light up in a moment. With a roll of tongue, the biscuits of the rest beef jerky disappear. He follows closely, raises his head and stares at Yi Tian tightly. His big eyes are full of longing. Rest assured, and seeing this, Yi Tian smiles. He takes out a lot of beef jerky and biscuits from Zumaji, tears open the package, and gives them to Debai and Xiaobai, as well as to Xiaobai. In a flash, the whole cave was filled with click-click crisp sound, immediately, and a few pairs of green eyes, big and small, staring at him tightly. Fortunately, Ning Shui was worried that he could not find food when he went into the mountain, and knew that his Zumaji was good at putting things, whether it was biscuits or beef jerky. He bought several large boxes. Now, it's all cheap for these snow leopards, and now, Big White also completely put down the leaf day of that guard heart, even if his cloud face small white they embrace in the bosom, also ignore. For a moment, the atmosphere in the cave was very warm, as if it were a pair of little lovers teasing their common pet. It's just that the appearance of the pet is a little scary. Yi Tian, is it too good for us to do this? What if they think that the people they see are like us and will give them food? What if they meet poachers in the future? But in happy, Yunfei also some worry, to Yi Tianxuan asked. Don't worry, I'll help them to open up their intelligence, make them more intelligent, and be able to distinguish the good from the evil. I know that not everyone is like us. Yi Tian smiles and looks at Yunfei. He has actually considered what Yunfei said. After all, he has personally seen how insane those poachers in Kunlun are. Under the greed of human nature, if the snow leopards don't have the heart to defend people, it won't be very good to wait for their results. Therefore, Yi Tian is ready to open his mind for them, and do some bone cutting and marrow washing, so that they can set foot on the road of cultivation and become the helpers of Kunlun mountain gods. At that time, if someone wants to do something to them because they are kind to human beings, he will regret that they have made a wrong decision. After that, Yi Tian took out the Jinwu fire elixir furnace, and then found some elixirs that the snow leopard family could use in the accumulated elixir, and then he turned on the furnace to refine a set of elixirs for them. Shieling pill is a kind of elixir which is fed to the spirit beast in the square-inch spirit field to enhance its intelligence. It is more than enough for them. Open your mouth. After the successful refining of the elixir, Yi Tian looks at several snow leopards with a faint smile and follows them closely. With a flick of his finger, the elixir roars and enters their mouth. In this world, there are pills for wild animals. And how strong can this elixir make their spirituality? Seeing this, Yunfei immediately looks at the snow leopards curiously and wants to know what kind of metamorphosis they will have. Meow meow. At the entrance of the pill, several snow leopards, big and small, crouched on the ground and roared. After a long time, everything returned to normal. They raised their heads, their big green eyes, and their light remained the same, but they were a little more clear than before. Not only that, with their hair, at this moment, have become a bit run, the breeze blowing, it looks like there is streamer in the lingering twinkling. Especially when Yunfei and snow leopards look at each other, they can't help but have a feeling that these little guys seem to understand what they are saying. This is something they didn't have before. Debai, Xiaobai, Xiaobai. Thinking of this, Yunfei can't help looking at the snow leopards and calling out their names. He wants to test their intelligence. How on earth? Meow meow meow.
Yunfei, a language falls. Along the size of Snow Leopard's position, immediately came 3 different voices, such as in response to her, closely followed, Snow Leopard, a few people will come to her, hairy size head, in her legs, gently rubbed. Although Snow Leopards were very spiritual before, there was no way to compare their spirituality at that time with them at this moment.
Sit down.
Yunfei stretched out his hand, touched their fluffy head, and made a sound again to verify. A language falls. Big white, small white, a few, immediately clever sat in front of Cloud Fei. That appearance, obviously understood what they said.
God, they become so smart. Angelica de Hurica C, can't help but cover the mouth, low exclamation voice.
You know, although it's very simple to sit down, many family dogs can do it, but it's learned through training. The Snow Leopard family, usually no one trains them to do these things, the only explanation is that they understand the words.
Is that smart? It's too low for you. Add a little bit of difficulty. Their current IQ should be equivalent to that of a 6-year-old child, maybe even higher. Tian sees this, looking at Cloud Fei to smile, then erect 2 fingers. Wait, is this several? Meow meow.
Snow Leopard, a few heard Tian's words, immediately open mouth, called twice.
God. Yunfei is dull.
You know, Tian's action at the moment means that these snow leopards have a concept of numbers now.
A wild animal knows how to count. This amazing dexterity can't help but amaze people.
Go and grab at the wall to see how much you've improved. Immediately after that, Tian said with a faint smile to the snow leopard family. But when he spoke, he didn't refer to the cave wall. He had to rely on the snow leopard family's judgment of words. You know, Ling Dan is not only to open the role of intelligence, but also to stimulate their blood in the power, so that their physical strength has become more powerful.
Meow.
Snow Leopard Debai and Snow Leopard Xiaobai smell the sound, immediately poke out their claws toward the wall of the cave, and forcefully grasp it. Hiss. When a paw fell, several deep claw marks immediately appeared on the hard stone wall, which made people feel that their claws were made of gold and iron. Hiss. And more let Cloud Fei feel shocked, is not big white and small white, but that a few sea-size, should still drink milk of small white. These little guys, also learned big white and small white appearance, in the stone wall scratched a few times, although failed to scratch a deep claw mark, but left a few white marks. You know, this is a young snow leopard who is still lactating. At this age, she has such a powerful force. She can't imagine how strong these little snow leopards should be when they grow up. I'm afraid that as long as they probe their claws, a hole will be made in the wall. There is no doubt that Tian's gift to the snow leopard family is too great. Especially these little snow leopards, their starting point is so high. When they grow up, their strength will be more amazing, and the upper limit of their growth will be higher than that of Debai and Xiaobai. I'm afraid that before long, the snow leopard family will become the king of Kunlun Mountain. And all this, in addition to let her praise, in the heart more feel to the leaf day of that incredible to the point of no more. Just refining a few pills can turn the common things into magic. Tian's power is more and more incredible, which is amazing. Moreover, she believes that if those mountain sects learn that Tian has such incredible pills, they will not hesitate to pay a lot of price in exchange. Because, since this elixir can make the leisurely beast into this level, it can undoubtedly make the powerful fierce beast even more incredible. If it can be used for its own use, it is still unknown that it can be used as the mountain-protecting spirit beast. I don't want you to act recklessly and kill other wild animals. If I find out later that you act recklessly on Kunlun Mountain, I can give you everything now, and I can take back everything. At this time, Tian looked at the snow leopard big white and small white, word by word, deep voice. Meow meow. Snow leopard Debai and snow leopard Xiaobai immediately lower their heads and make a low voice towards Tian, such as giving a promise. Good, remember what I said. Seeing this, Tian smiles and pats Debai and Xiaobai's head. Immediately after that, Tian began to get busy. He lit a bonfire in the snow leopard cave and cooked some beef porridge. Then he asked Xiaobai and Debai to fight some snow rabbits back. After cleaning up, he put them on the fire and roasted them until they were yellow and dripping oil. Have a rest early, it will be good for your health. I'll go out for a walk and see Kunlun Guishu again. After everything is over, Tian looks at Yunfei and smiles.
He takes out his sleeping bag and lets Yunfei lie in. Then he decides to go to Kunlun Guishu again to see if there is anything abnormal there at night. Then he carefully checks those field patterns to see if he can find the solution. You won't sneak in yourself, will you? If you want to go in, you must tell me. Cloud Fei hears sound, some worry of looking at Leafday, Wei. She is very worried that Yi Tian will enter the Kunlun Guishu. In that case, if anything happens, it will be immeasurable. Don't worry. I'm just going to have a look. If I go in, I'll let you know. You go to bed first, I promise, and you'll be back in a moment. Yi Tian hears Yunfei's words, light smile, Wei. Well. Cloud Fei see Yi Tian's look doesn't seem to be fake, this just nodded, just eyes but straight looking at Yi Tian, even if he went to the cave door, also didn't leave. It's just like a newlyweds who want to say goodbye. Yi Tian looks at the appearance of Cloud Fei, can't help but come up with an absurd idea in the heart. But then he shook his head and put all these absurd ideas behind him. Then he and Xiaobai, one by one, went to Kunlun again. A little later, Yi Tian and Snow Leopard arrived at Kunlun before returning to the market. You two, have a look, is there any way to get into this, or is there any way to crack it? After arriving at Kunlun Guishu, Yi Tian asks Xiaobai to keep watch around. However, he releases Taisui's hand and the secret's hand, and asks them to help him make some suggestions to see if there is any way to break the natural field of Kunlun Guishu and find the way to enter. Where life and death mingle, heaven and earth are created to live. This star is really mysterious. I really want to know how gorgeous the cultivation civilization here was in the past. When Taisui saw that Kunlun had returned to the ruins, he immediately sighed. Such a secret place, as far as he knows, is rare in the starry sky, but it appears in the earth, a planet with poor aura. It may not be the creation of heaven and earth, it may also be created by the field master. The means of the field master are extremely mysterious, and they can seize the creation of heaven and earth for their own use. The field laid by them is almost the same as that generated by nature. It is extremely difficult to find the realm of leisure field. But just then, the secret hand shook his head and gave a different opinion. The hand of the field master. Yi Tianjia's tongue followed closely. He looked at the mysterious hand and Taisui, said, "This Kunlun ruins, are you sure there are natural Lingyu?" "Yes, there is no doubt about that." The secretive hand nodded his finger, gave a positive answer, followed by a slight throb in his tone, and said, "Moreover, in the blend of life and death, under normal circumstances, there will not be such a strong vitality. The only explanation is that there are not a few natural Lingyu here, and they are extremely pure. Therefore, although it failed to lead to the imbalance between life and death in this field, it was still in the Jedi that created this full of vitality. It's true that only natural Lingyu has such an effect. In a place where life and death blend and should be like a Jedi, it has long been so vital." This time, Taisui rarely refuted the secret hand, but agreed with him. In Kunlun Guishu, there are also natural Lingyu. When Yi Tian heard the sound, his eyes immediately showed a strong color of hope. The nature of Lingyu is too mysterious. It involves the secret of becoming an immortal. It can even transform the monk's mana into the legendary mana, making the power more powerful. Such an opportunity can never be missed. We must do our best to collect it. Can you take advantage of your ability to steal, not to go back to the ruins of Kunlun, but to take out the natural spirit jade from it? Next, Yi Tian looks at the mysterious hand and asks it. My power will follow the power of the user. Do you have that ability? Moreover, I am now in a damaged state. Even if you have that strength, I can't burst out so powerful, the secret hand groaned and said. Yi Tian is speechless and shakes his head with a bitter smile. His idea is indeed too fanciful. However, it's not a simple matter to enter Kunlun Guihui to obtain those natural Lingyu. If you enter without a solution, you'll be gambling your life. In this world, all fields need to have power to provide kinetic energy for them. The kinetic energy consumed by such a huge natural field is immeasurable. I suspect that it is the natural spirit jade buried in this valley that provides kinetic energy for these fields. If you can get into it and take away the natural spirit jade, you may be able to stop the field and get the possibility of retreating from it. However, it's absolutely dangerous. It's not too much to say that you are doomed.
At this time, Tai Sui stares at Kunlun Guishu, and after a long time, he looks at Yi Tian and gives a bold idea.
Venture into the field, collect nature Lingyu, make the field invalid, and then leave?
Yi Tian hears the sound, and his eyes are constantly changing.
He knows that Tai Sui really has a certain truth. No matter in any field, there needs to be a force to provide them with powerful kinetic energy. Tianqing Lingyu does have this ability.
But similarly, if you venture into the field, there is no doubt about the great danger you will face. This can be seen from the tragic death of Chun Chang and Ma Tang. Although his strength is much stronger than those two people, he may not be able to support him and find the natural Lingyu. Moreover, once he enters the Kunlun ruins, even if he regrets it, it is difficult to get out.
The greater the risk, the greater the gain. You have to figure out for yourself how to decide.
If you give up this chance, your future achievements may not be small.
Tai Sui is very frank.
He tells Yi Tianxiao the pros and cons and asks him to make a more appropriate decision.
Yi Tian's thoughts are changeable when he hears the news. This is an opportunity and an adventure. If he wins, he will benefit a lot. But if he loses, he will lose everything. Even his life will be in this ghost place. Salara Shalala.
But just then, along the mountains in the distance, there was a sudden sound of walking, light and heavy.
It was obvious that two people came from a distance. Meow meow.
At the same time, the snow leopard also issued a warning low growl.
So late, who entered the Kunlun mountain, and still came for the Kunlun ruins?
When Yi Tian heard this, he didn't have any hesitation. He put away Tai Sui's hand in his secret hand, and then hid his body in a crack in the rock not far away. Then he operated the secret skill that Monkey Mountain God taught him to blend with heaven and earth, making people unable to feel and explore. At the same time, he even sent a message to the snow leopard, asking him to leave as soon as possible, so as not to get involved in the disaster in case of any dispute.
We haven't met any wild animals along the way. How can this snow leopard stay in Kunlun and go back to the market?
Almost at the same time when Yi Tian is hiding well, a deep male voice suddenly rings out, and listening to each other's words, he is obviously an extremely alert person. Shui Fang, you are too alert, but it's just a snow leopard.
Maybe you passed by chance?
After this voice fell, a clear and beautiful voice came out. It was obviously a woman, and her vigilance was much worse than Shui Fang's.
Niafu, there's a saying in the world.
Be careful to sail for thousands of years. All the way, there have been no wild animals, only one.
Don't you think it's strange? Let me try the ability of the snow leopard first. Shui Fang was very alert and didn't approve of the woman's words.
At the same time, Yi Tian saw that he had picked up a stone and threw it at the snow leopard before he could leave.
Hiss!
When the stones fly out, the fierce wind blows immediately, which makes people feel that it is not like a stone, but like a terrible arrow.
The cultivation of the 5th floor of the cave.
The two of them are the coming ones. When Yi Tian hears the sound, he immediately perceives each other's cultivation realm and determines their identity. In particular, Shui Fang's "there is a saying in the world that is well said" confirms his guess. You know, most people should say "as the saying goes well" instead of "in the world," unless he thinks he is not a person in the world.
Schwa.
At the same time, the stone-flying, snow leopard immediately flexible and comparable leap, dangerous to avoid this sharp stone. Niafu sees this, eyebrow tip can't help but slightly a yang, in the eye revealed the color of surprise. You know, the speed of the blow released from the 5th floor of the cave is immeasurable, and it can't be avoided at all. Although the snow leopard's movement is very flexible, it shouldn't be so flexible that it can be called incredible.
Do you still think it's an ordinary snow leopard?
Shui Fang sees this scene, also toward Niafu light smile, Wei. Niafu did not say a word, hand toward the waist, a soft whip immediately appeared in the palm of the hand, body light floating jump, such as the wind general, extremely flexible shaking whip, to the snow leopard's body roll up, to bind it, take a look at its clues.
No.
When Yi Tian saw this, his eyes lit up and his body swept out of the stone. He knew that although the snow leopard had taken the chilling pill, he could not compare his strength with the monks on the 5th floor of the cave. Once he fell into the hands of these guys, he was afraid that his life would be ruined.
Hiss! Without any hesitation, Yi Tian's hand trembled, and a wind blade quickly flew to the whip.
At the moment when the wind blade hits the whip, when the whip is far away, there is a brilliant spark. It is obvious that the whip is forged with some metal. If the whip is drawn on the snow leopard, it will not only be skin-splitting, but also go deep into the viscera.
Sure enough, it's a spirit beast kept by someone.
When Xuefeng saw Yi Tian's figure, he immediately showed his vigilance and looked at him coldly.
What did my spirit beast do wrong? You are going to be treated like this. Don't you want to give me an explanation?
Yi Tian looks at Xuefeng indifferently, every word, light way.
Explain? That's what my aunt told you. Niafu's temper is very irascible. When she hears Yi Tian's words, she immediately gives a sneer.
Her soft whip shakes and screams fiercely. She rolls towards Yi Tian.
It seems that you really don't know the superiority of heaven and earth. Seeing this, Yi Tian smiles indifferently.
His mana moves and his hand shakes slightly. Then he bravely grabs the whip.
Things that don't know how to live or die.
Niafu saw Yi Tian's action, immediately sneer, soft whip roaring. She is confident, even if Yi Tian can condense the blade, but his own whip down, can also be his hand, pull in two.
Schwa!
But at this time, an incredible scene appeared. Yi Tian's hand was raised and he grasped the soft whip tightly in his hand. Moreover, the hand was not damaged. Not only that, when he pulled it slightly, he pulled the soft whip into his hand.
Pa! Immediately after that, Yi Tian's hand suddenly shakes.
Without waiting for Niafu to say the 5 words, "How is this possible?" he hits her heavily. In an instant, her skin is full of flesh and blood.
Ah, it's killing me.
The bloodstain was not only ferocious, but also painful. The moment it fell on Niafu, she immediately let out a cry like killing a pig. At this moment, her pretty cheek was twisted like a devil.
This guy is so strong.
This scene, let Xuefeng's expression also can't help a Lin, surprised to look toward Yi Tian.
You know, Niafu is a 5-story monk in the cave. He is very powerful. Even the people on the Tianji mountain may not be her opponent.
But now, Yi Tian just takes the weapon from her hand, and draws it on her with a backhand whip, bringing out such a big bloodstain.
Don't do to others what you don't want to do to yourself. Do you know the pain? Doesn't my beloved know the pain?
But at this time, Yi Tian's hand is slightly shaking, the long whip whistling out, Sun Lang's whip slightly, once again toward Niafu.
Xuefeng doesn't have any hesitation.
Even if he wants to stop him, it's a pity that Yi Tian's action speed is too fast.
Before he arrives, the long whip has already hit Niafu heavily.
This heavy whip falls on Niafu's injured position again.
Click!
In a flash, along Niafu's body, immediately came the sound of bone fracture.
Obviously, this blow had completely broken his bone. Ah!
Almost at the same time of the terrible cracking sound, there was the same shrill and terrible howling sound in Niafu's mouth.
Xuefeng, kill him, I want you to kill him.
Immediately after that, Niafu retreats madly, spilling blood all over the ground. At the same time, he yells at Xuefeng bitterly, asking him to take revenge for himself and kill Yi Tian.
Zheng.
Almost at the same time when she spoke, Xuefeng gently patted his waist, and a long sword leaped out of the scabbard, flying in the air, carrying a series of shining thunder, and stabbing at Yi Tianxi with terror. Playing cheap in front of me, I think you really don't know what to do.
Yi Tian laughs, and his mind moves.
The fierce swords roar out and greet Xuefeng's swords without fear.
Feijian, you are not from the mountain, you are also a monk.
When Xuefeng saw that Yi Tian had a flying sword in his hand, his face immediately showed a strong color of surprise, and he couldn't believe it. Just now, he thought that Yi Tian was just a mountain man at the end of the sky level, or at the peak of the sky level. But now, when Yi Tian wields the skill of flying sword, he realizes that he underestimates Yi Tian. This guy is not a mountain man. At least, none of the mountain people he knows can control the flying sword. His only explanation is like his 2 Ps, Yi Tian and he, like Niafu, are monks. But the difference is that they are descendants, and Yi Tian seems to be a local monk on earth. Take you. But after a short period of consternation, Xuefeng's face became more ecstatic.
What they lack most is their understanding of the secret places of the earth. Otherwise, they would not wander around. As for those people on the mountain, what they see and feel is nothing more than half a dozen. In the family of the former friars, they are not as good as domestic slaves. They are just some slightly powerful ordinary people. When they talk about the ancient friars on the earth, they don't know what to ask. But if Tian is the native friar of the earth and can take him down, the great benefit is absolutely self-evident. Similarly, if he can capture an aboriginal monk, he can definitely get a substantial reward after taking him back. Kung. Almost at the same time, Tian's flying sword and Xuefeng's flying sword hit each other hard. When they touched each other, a brilliant spark immediately burst out, which was particularly dazzling in the night. Click. But next breath, the terrible cracking sound came out along the position where the flying sword hit. Haha, boy, your sword doesn't look good no, how could this happen? Why? When Xuefeng heard this, his face immediately showed a proud color. He felt that the broken sword must be Tian's flying sword. But when he looked at it carefully, his face changed immediately. I saw that the broken sword, as he expected, was Tian's sword. On the contrary, it was the flying sword in his hand. Moreover, the location of the fracture is extremely level, which makes people feel that his flying sword, in front of Tian's flying sword, is like a piece of tofu, which is vulnerable to a single blow. It can be easily split into two parts. Who the hell are you? The flying sword was cut in half. At this moment, Xuefeng was completely flustered. He was afraid to retreat. At the same time, he looked at Tian and cheered coldly. Destroy you who have come. Tian smiles indifferently and looks at Xuefeng. He says in a cold voice that the fierce sword is greedy. He is not afraid to move forward. He wants to take Xuefeng's life to nourish his body and strengthen his fierce nature. Annihilate you who came. Xuefeng is stunned and suddenly wakes up. Looking at Tian, he says, those who came in the past were killed by you? Well, you're not stupid either. Tian light smile, play taste. Xuefeng didn't have any hesitation. As soon as his body method changed, he wanted to use the broken flying sword to escape from here. However, there was no way for his speed to compare with Tian. The whipping Tian's hand was just so light. With a very gentle swing, he entangled Xuefeng's body and dragged him back. Che! Then, the fierce soldier's flying sword penetrates his body fiercely, and large blood splashes up. At the same time, along his cultivation and vitality, he immediately flies like water towards the fierce soldier's flying sword, and is engulfed by it. In a short time, Xuefeng, a big living man, was devoured by the fierce sword, digested into fly ash and scattered between heaven and earth. This. Niafu looked at this terrible scene. The already pale face is completely pale, staring at Tian, body crazy shaking. She couldn't understand what was going on in front of her, but there was no doubt that she didn't want to end up with Xue. And she also understood that today, she can't leave. Xuefeng's strength is better than her own. She has come to such an end, not to mention herself. Zheng. At the same time, the fierce soldier's flying sword turned and pointed directly at Niafu, making a terrible clank. Recently, it hasn't been eating meat for a long time. It doesn't look up to the leisurely mountain people. Now Xuefeng is just enough to satisfy his appetite. Come on, what are you doing here? If you don't answer honestly, I don't mind. Let you follow Xuefeng's footsteps as well. At this time, Tian's hand moves, and the fierce sword swings back, circling around Tian's body, but the blade still points directly at Niafu. The fierce cold makes her feel that as long as she has a slight change, it will pierce her like a streamer. Aye. Niafu is crazy and shivering. She stares at Tian with her lips moving. She is about to say something, but suddenly her eyes are wide open. She looks at Tian and dares not say, "You are Tian." It's Emperor Tian of Qingming Blessed Land. Aren't you dead? How can you still be alive? Just now, when she saw Tian, she felt familiar, but she didn't take it to heart. After all, as a descendant,
what acquaintance can she have in this world? But at this moment, after staring at Yi Tian carefully, she found that Yi Tian was exactly the same as the Red Emperor Yi Tian in Qingming Blessed Land. However, she really can't understand that when she was killed by several great friars of Yupu realm, how could Yi Tian, the Emperor of Dan, who had lost his life in the world, reappear on the earth? Like, live out the second. But there is no doubt that in the face of the Emperor Yi Tian, she really has no chance of winning. Dante Yi Tian is still alive and appears on the earth, but his cultivation has become the 8th floor of the cave. Nef's head was buzzing, which she did not expect at all. Dante Yi Tian is still alive. This is absolutely an explosive news, especially when it comes to Fengsu and Lingyu. There will be terrible waves. It's not just her little 5-story cave, or even the old monster in Yupu, but many large-scale gates will be disturbed, and how many people will be unable to sleep at night, tossing and turning. After all, it's a true legend that Yi Tian, the Emperor of Dan, was in the square-inch spiritual realm. He practiced for 300 years and broke through the realm of Jade and Pu. Although it can't be said that there was no one before, it's also enough to amaze an era, especially the refining ability of Dan medicine. It's beyond discussion. Even though Yi Tian is believed to be dead in Feng Cun's spiritual realm, there are still various legends about him everywhere. Especially in Dan Dao, no one can replace his former position, and the emergence of Tianzhou is always compared with him, and then those people are eclipsed. Even, many people think that if Yi Tian did not fall, he would become the first celestial palace, or even the first immortal. Of course, it is precisely for this reason that Yi Tian died. If those who killed him knew that instead of killing him, they would bring him back to life and appear on the earth, I'm afraid they would be in a panic and even the spirit soldiers would not be able to grasp it. Do you know who I am? Are you the friar of which sect in Fengsu and Lingyu, or are you only your master? Well, answer my question. I can also leave you a whole body. If you dare to talk nonsense, or avoid not to cooperate, then don't blame me for being impolite. Of course, if I'm satisfied with your answer, I don't mind giving you a way to live. When Yi Tian heard this, he was also stunned and followed closely. Then he looked at Niefu and asked in a deep voice. After leaving Fengsu and Lingyu for a long time, he wants to know what's going on in Fengsu and Lingyu now, what's going on in those days when they attacked his clan together, and whether the monks in Qingming Blessed Land are still living in this world. All these need Niefu to solve his doubts. Meow meow. Hearing Yi Tian's words, Snow Leopard Xiaobai immediately looks at Niefu and roars 2 times full of threat, revealing her sharp fangs and sharp claws. It seems that as long as Niefu says something wrong, she will rush up and tear her to pieces. I'm the Lord of Darkness. I put a stake in Hualing Valley. After getting the order of the Lord of Darkness, I gave up the identity of Hualing Valley and came to the earth. Niefu was very clear that his strength is not as good as Yi Tian's. If he resists, he will die. Maybe he will die in the mouth of this terrible snow leopard. That end is a bit too miserable. Rather than that, he should answer Yi Tian's question honestly. Maybe there is a way to live. Friar Hualing Valley. When Yi Tian hears the sound, his eyes can't help changing slightly, and the murderer in his eyes emerges. Hualing Valley is the ancestral gate of Xueme, one of the 8 Yupu monks who encircled him at the beginning. Master, I don't know anything about Mrs. Xueme's going to encircle you. Please don't blame me. Niefu feels that Yi Tian's body sends out that tang-tang to kill an idea. The body immediately can't help but excite spirit to beat a shiver, then the full face is in a panic way. What's the current situation of Fengsu and Lingyu? Danxia Blessed Land, Lingshu Blessed Land, Qingyuan Dongtian, Dongjin Ruins, Sanling Mountain, and Guangtian Temple. Now, which is better? When Yi Tian hears Niefu's words, he forcibly suppresses the murdering opportunity in his heart, and then, looking at Niefu, he asks coldly. Whether it's Danxia, Lingshu and Qingyuan Cave, or Dongjin Ruins, Sanling Mountain and Guangtian Temple, each of them is the culprit who sent Yupu monk to kill Qingming. He wants to know what the situation is like for his enemies, so that he can get revenge after he returns to the square-inch spiritual realm. I tell you, since you died after you left Qingming Blessed Land, Fengsuan spiritual realm was in chaos because of the competition for the details of Qingming Blessed Land. Dongjin Ruins joined hands with Sanling Mountain and Guangtian Temple to fight against Danxia Blessed Land, while Lingshu Blessed Land and Qingyuan Dongtian joined hands to destroy Hualing Valley and redefine the new order of Fengsuan spiritual realm.
Today's Fengsuan spiritual realm is in the process of reshuffle. The Tianji old man, who was fighting against you, is now dead. Niafu doesn't dare to hide anything.
She honestly tells Yi Tian about the current situation of Fengsuan Lingyu, and tells Yi Tian everything. But when she just said it, she almost said the words "since you died." Fortunately, she responded quickly and changed her words in time, which became "after you left."
The old dog is dead.
When Yi Tian heard this, he could not help but feel a kind of pleasure in his heart, and some of it was incredible. You know, Tianji old man is an old master of Yupu. He was also the initiator of the attack on Qingning Blessed Land.
Now, he died. It's incredible. There must be something hidden in it.
But, the death of Tianji old man also let Yi Tian some pity. He wanted to hand blade enemy, but now it seems, is no chance.
The death of Tianji old man is a secret. No one knows who killed him. We only see his head and crushed body. There is a rumor that he was killed by your fool.
There is also a saying that he was killed by several other Yupujing, but it can't be confirmed.
Those people didn't admit it.
Niafu hastened to explain and told the cause and effect. The originator of the terracotta figurine has no future.
It's the old dog of fate. It's his fault.
When Yi Tian heard the words, he immediately sneered.
The fate of Tianji old man is just his own.
He originally proposed to unite those Yupu monks to kill him. Naturally, those people can also unite to kill him.
This is also a kind of retribution. It's not only the old dog of heaven's secret, but also the war of Fengsuan spirit.
They thought that if they killed themselves, they would not be crushed by others. However, they never thought that if people get together for profit, they will share it with others.
It's not only the uneven distribution of stolen goods, but also the infighting. This kind of thing is addictive.
For the first time, it's natural, however, they want to have a second time. It's just that Yi Tian was the one in the past, and the people who will come will be their companions in the past. I'm afraid that it is precisely because Fengsuan's spiritual realm has fallen into chaos that the embers of the Dark Age will revive, return to the world, and go to the earth to pursue the mystery of immortality.
Master, I have told you what I know.
When I was in Hualing Valley, I was just a disciple.
I didn't know much. Please forgive me.
At this time, Niafu pleads with Yi Tian, hoping to get his forgiveness and spare himself a way to live.
Don't worry.
You haven't told me what your purpose is to return to the market in Kunlun.
Yi Tian indifferent smile, looking at Niafu, light continue way. Our purpose of returning to the ruins in Kunlun is very simple.
It's not only for us, but also for the owner. After we have checked the situation here, we will decide whether to send another 3 teams to investigate the other 3 secret places. According to the information we have received, it is said that the 4 major Jedi on the earth are rarely visited and have many strange places. Maybe they are hidden. There is a secret collection of ancient monks that the master wants to get. Niafu looks at Yi Tian respectfully and tells the purpose of his trip to Kunlun. As expected, those who came have already begun to take action. Moreover, not only Kunlun Guishu, but also the other 3 Jedi are already in action.
Hearing this, Yi Tian felt a kind of crisis. If it is said that Kunlun Guishu has the nature of Lingyu, then what the other 3 Jedi have is absolutely extraordinary. Once it falls into the hands of the comers, the consequences will be absolutely unimaginable. They must act before them. When you come to explore this kind of Jedi, don't you come here with only a head? What else do you have with you? Immediately after, Yi Tian looks at Niafu and asks in a deep voice. The comers are different from the people on the mountain.
They have a clearer understanding of danger than the people on the mountain. There is no reason why they don't make any preparations when they come to this kind of Jedi. Maybe Xuefang and Niafu have something that even he feels precious. Maybe it will help him to enter the Kunlun ruins. The master gave Xuefang a self-defense secret weapon, but I don't know what it is. Xuefang put it in his Shumi commandment.
Niafu was very afraid of Yi Tian now. She doesn't dare to hide anything at all.
After hearing this, she immediately trembles and murmurs.
What's Sumitsu? Self-defense secret weapon? When Yi Tian heard Niafu's words, he was very happy. He turned his head and looked at Shui Fang's ashes. He immediately saw that there was an antique ring on the ground, showing a dark gold color. It was not Shumi ring, but something. He didn't know what the self-defense secret weapons of the comers looked like, but Sumi Jia was absolutely a good thing. Whether it was for personal use or for giving away, it was absolutely first class. Even if the self-defense secret weapon is just like that, it can be regarded as a great harvest to get this Shumi ring. Shua! Without any hesitation, Yi Tian took the Shumi ring into his hand with a slight lift of his hand, and then, with a movement of his mind, he wiped away the spiritual mark on the Shumi ring and went straight into it. It's not a big place. It's smaller than my Shumi ring, but it's still okay. After Yi Tian's devotion, he immediately found that the space in this Shumi ring is about 2 square meters, which is not as good as his, but it can also put a lot of things. It's a pity that Shui Fang didn't come to the world long ago. This Shumi ring is empty. Except for some heavy clothes and supplies to be carried when going to high-altitude areas, there is nothing for cultivation. The only thing that attracts people's attention is a brocade box. What's in this brocade box should be the self-defense secret device that Nifu said. After Yi Tian found the brocade box, he took it out of the box, but he was not in a hurry to open it, and he carefully illuminated it with his mind. As the saying goes, you should be careful to sail for thousands of years, not to mention, you can't be wrong in the face of these evil guys. Insect carving skills? Sure enough, Yi Tian immediately discovers that there is a small mechanism in the brocade box with some poison powder hidden inside. If he opens it rashly without any preparation, he is afraid that he will not be sprayed with poison powder all over his face. Whoosh! Next, Yi Tian throws the brocade box to the snow in the distance. Next, he picks up a stone. With a flick of his finger, the stone roars out, and immediately hits the switch of the brocade box heavily. At the moment when the brocade box pops up, a stream of poisonous powder suddenly spurts towards the sky. And when the poison powder fell to the ground, along the ground, there was a stream of smoke. The stones on the ground turned into fly ash and disappeared. There is no doubt that if it fell on Yi Tian's face, his head would be burned into several big holes. Is this the secret of self-defense? Immediately after that, Yi Tian uses his hand to take pictures of the clouds. He grabs the token that comes out of the brocade box after he opens it. The shape of this token is very strange. The whole token is dark red, just like a piece of coagulated blood. It exudes a kind of ancient and vicissitudes of life. Moreover, the dense veins on it present a vivid human shape, and it seems to be constantly changing, without a specific appearance. This is Death Talisman. But when Yi Tian's eyes fell on those shadowy and changeable human shapes, his eyes suddenly changed, and he took a breath of cold air, showing his ecstatic color. The talisman for death, as the name suggests, is a talisman that can die for the holder once. This is the highest grade talisman among all amulets. As long as you put a wisp of spirit into this talisman, you can make the talisman bear the maximum damage that you can bear once. Of course, the higher the cultivation level, the higher the level of death talisman needed. According to Yi Tian's estimation, the maximum that this death talisman can carry should be the sea view. Naturally, it's more than enough to use the 8 levels of his cave. There is no doubt that with this talisman for death, his chances of surviving in Kunlun ruins are much higher. At least, he can eliminate a disaster. But the appearance of the talisman for death also sounded an alarm for Yi Tian. You know, the talisman for death is not something that the friars can make. At least it must be a master of Fudao. Especially this talisman for death is at the level of sea view, which means that the maker must at least be at the level of sea view. In this case, the strength of those who come to us can't help but be on guard. In your organization, what is the most powerful cultivation now? Yi Tian hears the sound, without thinking, looks at Niafu, and asks in a deep voice. As far as I know, the most powerful people are the 2 sea watchers, besides the masters who don't know how high their cultivation is. Niafu dare not conceal, honest way. 2 people watching the sea. The leaf day hears a sound, immediately poured to draw a cold air, in the eye immediately exposed the thick color of fear.
There is no doubt that, fortunately, he has not been targeted by the arrivals. Otherwise, if he is facing the encirclement and suppression of the two Sea Watchers, he will not be able to continue to live even if he has one more. Moreover, there is a sea view now, so in the future, among those who come, will there be one with higher cultivation level? Master, I have told you everything I know. Please forgive me. I will change my mind and be a good man, and I will never make trouble again. As long as you are willing to let me go, no matter what I am asked to do, I will be happy whatever you want. I didn't come here voluntarily, because they took my parents in their hands and said that if I didn't cooperate with them honestly, I would kill my parents. I had no choice but to come. I haven't done a bad thing since I came to Earth. At this time, Niafu Pudong kneels down on the ground, pleads with Yi Tian, bites his teeth, and, like making a decision, yanks open the zipper of his clothes, trying to seek Yi Tian's forgiveness. Put that away. I can't see your leather bag. Besides, I have a way to know what you've done. This scene, although attractive, but he is not the kind to see attractive, cannot control the person, especially Niafu or Come. Niafu hears a sound, this just shivered of pulled down clothes, then frightened of looking at Leaf Day. Let go of your mind. Take the soul. Yi Tian glanced at Niafu and said indifferently. Niafu, according to the words, obediently spread the idea, let Yi Tian idea into the sea of knowledge, in which wanton back and forth, to explore their own secrets. This woman is really not deceiving. He really doesn't want to be a hidden pile or a follower. Yi Tian Shenian searches and immediately finds out that this nun, Niafu, has a miserable life. She was sent to Hualing Valley by her parents when she was a child. But she is also affectionate. When she was in Hualing Valley, she had a lot of feelings for her brothers and sisters, but later she was coerced by the dark organization with her parents' lives and made a dark pile. Then, she continued to coerce. She stole secrets for them from Hualing Valley. This time, it's the same. But it's funny that she only found out after she came that she was an orphan. The parents who were taken to coerce her were just pretending to be her. They didn't take her with them for a day. She was just tampered with her memory by others. This girl's life is really full of ups and downs. After reading Niafu's memory, Yi Tianyi is speechless in his heart. This life, it is like being in the dark, muddled through so a lifetime, from birth to now, has been so inside and outside of the coax. Parents are false. They enter the clan together, but they are also afraid. Finally, they are inexplicably sent to this completely strange place on Earth in this way. It's no wonder that Niafu was so angry at the beginning. After all, he was fooled for such a long time, but there was no way to resist. Instead, he had to hold his nose and admit his life to help the person who had hurt him. No matter who he was, he would be angry in his heart. Master, please forgive me. As long as you are willing to let me go and let me do anything, I swear that as long as you are willing to take me in, from now on, no matter what I am asked to do, I will never dare to resist and disobey you. You are my only master, and I will never abandon you no matter how I live or die. At this time, Niafu looks at Yi Tian with a face full of pleading, and pleads for mercy miserably. For her, her loyalty to the Lord of Darkness is far from high. Everything she does is coerced by others. Now, when she comes to the earth, she doesn't even know anyone and can't leave. She only works for the Lord of Darkness when she admits her destiny. Since it's for people, what's the difference between giving it to the Lord of Darkness or to Yi Tian? Yi Tian's eyes change slightly when he hears the news. There is indeed a lack of a powerful female cultivator around him. Although there are several people protecting Qin Luo God, they are all men, which is inconvenient after all. It would be much more convenient to have a nun to take care of his daily life. Eat this and I'll believe you. After pondering a little, Yi Tian stares at Niafu and takes out the Jinwu fire elixir. Immediately, he throws a few pieces of elixir into it and makes a gray elixir. Immediately, he throws it to Niafu and says faintly, "Yes." Niafu hears the news, takes the pill in a hurry, swallows it into her mouth without thinking. In an instant, the pill turns into a thread of fire and spreads to her body. This is the heart lock pill. If you take this pill, your internal organs will be locked by me. If you dare to disobey, you will bear the consequences yourself. Yi Tianling hums, and immediately pinches her hand tightly. For a moment, Niafu only feels that her heart is pinched by a hand. Her heart is almost as painful as if it is about to split into pieces. It is so painful that people almost feel that life is not like death. At this time, Yi Tian's clenched hands suddenly loosen again. Niafu immediately felt that the hand, which seemed to be holding her heart, had been released at this moment. She was like a dehydrated fish. She collapsed on the ground, opened her mouth and gasped.
Do you remember what I said? Immediately, Yi Tian looks at Niafu and scolds her in a deep voice. Master, don't worry. Niafu is willing to follow Mr. Yi. He will never betray you in this life.
Niafu hears Yi Tian's words and immediately struggles to get up. She looks at Yi Tian in fear and makes an oath to him. Although she hasn't heard of any heart-locking pill, he knows that Yi Tian has the ability of Emperor Dan, and his attainments in Dan Dao are amazing, which is beyond imagination. The pill he made is even more mysterious, and maybe he really has the ability to control her internal organs. But there is no doubt that this is absolutely not a risk to gamble on the truth, because once it is true, if you gamble, you will die. Come with me. At this time, Yi Tian glanced at Niafu and said faintly. After the words fall, he takes Xiaobai, the snow leopard, to the cave where the snow leopard lives. Niafu follows him and stumbles.
Meow meow. A moment later, Yi Tian took her to the entrance of the cave. The snow leopard's hearing was very sharp.
As soon as he came near, he heard his footsteps and gave out bursts of joyful calls.
Then, along the cave, Yunfei's voice came, Yi Tian, is it you?
It turned out that he had a woman with him.
No wonder he didn't want me.
It turned out that he was worried that his woman was jealous. Niafu hear this voice, immediately don't have deep meaning of saw leaf day one eye. She is very confident about her body and face, especially the former. But at that time, Yi Tian looked at her eyes without any distractions, which made her feel that Yi Tian must be pretending. Now, she has accepted her fate and decided to follow Yi Tian in the future, but, she thinks, if you can be a woman of Yi Tian, you will be better than a servant of Yi Tian. It's me. Yi Tian, who knows Niafu's mind, takes her and walks into the cave.
She is.
Cloud Fei hears this sound, immediately a long sigh of relief, followed closely, then see Yi Tian is not alone, but also with a person, that originally full of joy-colored cheek, suddenly, more embarrassed in doubt, and a little bit of vinegar. She some doubts, Leaf Day avoids oneself, is for meeting with Niafu. Originally, he is not worried about her woman jealous, but really do not look up to me this kind of mediocre fat vulgar powder. At the same time, Niafu's eyes also fell on Yunfei's face. When she saw Yunfei's face, and because of the warm air in the cave, her face was immediately full of bitter smile. She had confidence in herself, but at this moment, seeing Yunfei's appearance, she felt that she was like an ugly duckling in front of each other. And similarly, the prince who is used to swans, how can he think that the ugly duckling is beautiful and look up to her? Yi Tian has no thoughts about his heart. In short, he has 3 words, I can't see it.
Niafu's mother.
Under this extreme sense of frustration, Niafu no longer wants to be the careful thinking of Yi Tian's woman. After a burst of bitterness in her heart, she respectfully kneels down in front of Yunfei and salutes her.
Ah!
She this action, but is to let Cloud Fei see after, can't help a flurry, don't know what to do is good. However, the sour and astringent feeling in my heart before now has disappeared and has been replaced by embarrassment.
You are mistaken. I am not your mother.
Yi Tian and I are just friends, not his girlfriend.
Immediately after that, Yunfei waves her hand and explains to Niafu.
Such a beautiful woman, as pure and refined as a fairy, but as attractive as a devil, is not Yi Tian's Taoist partner. Niafu smell speech as Zhang, full face of can't believe, but when see Cloud Fei face of that embarrassed, immediately understand, Cloud Fei didn't lie, she is not Leaf Day woman.
If the girl like Lian Yunfei is not the woman of Yi Tian, then his woman should be amazing to what amazing degree? Let's have a rest first.
Tomorrow morning, I'll go into Kunlun and go back to the market to have a look. At this time, Yi Tian broke the silence and threw a bottle of Shuaji ointment to Niafu, saying, this is my refined Shuaji ointment, which can stop bleeding and cure wounds, and can make your wounds free from scars.
Apply it on yourself. Tomorrow, Yunfei's safety will be protected by you. Don't let me down.
Yes, master. Niafu took the snow cream, respectfully, immediately, deep in the eye, showing a strong color of gratitude. In the past, when she was in Hualing Valley and in the Dark Organization, those people didn't care about her at all except asking her to do things. When they needed her, they called her to their side. When they didn't need her, they kicked her away. They didn't care about her. Now, Yi Tian's concern for her really makes her feel flattered. Even suddenly, she feels that it's not necessarily a bad thing to turn her back on the Dark Organization and join Yi Tian.